Chapter 684. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhizheng threw his head back and laughed. After laughing, he lowered his head and glared at Yi Tianhua. Yi Tianhua, you still want to lie to me? Do you really think I'm that easy to see? Shui Zhizheng paused for a moment before continuing. Yi Tianhua, I advise you to agree to our conditions so as not to hurt our friendship. Yi Tianhua shook his head and said with a wry smile, Hall Master Shui, it's not that I don't want to agree to your conditions, but this matter is too strange. If I don't investigate this matter clearly, how can I agree to your conditions? Shui Zhizheng sneered. Yi Tianhua, do you mean that you won't agree to my conditions? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Hall Master Shui, it's not that I don't agree to your conditions, but before this matter is investigated clearly, I won't agree to your conditions. Zhang Chunren said angrily. Yi Tianhua, what's the difference between saying this and not agreeing? Yuan Weiqing also sneered and said, Yi Tianhua, are you thinking of sneaking back and then taking the opportunity to attack us? After destroying our South County's secret thunder sect, you naturally don't have to agree to our conditions, right? Yi Tianhua shook his head with a wry smile. You're wrong. I can only agree to your conditions after investigating this matter. Otherwise, how can I agree? Zhang Chunren sneered. In that case, Yi Tianhua, don't blame us for taking action. Yi Tianhua frowned when he heard this. Zhang Chunren, I've already said that it's not that I don't agree to your conditions, but I'll only agree to your conditions after investigating this matter. Why don't you understand? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. Yi Tianhua, it's useless to talk so much nonsense. I want to ask now, do you agree to our conditions or not? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua sighed. Before this matter is investigated clearly, I won't agree to your conditions. Hearing Yi Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunren immediately shouted and slashed at Yi Tianhua with his saber. Seeing this, Yi Tianhua sighed and waved his sword to block Zhang Chunren's attack. After Zhang Chunren was pushed back, he sneered and suddenly took out a thunderbolt ball. With a shout, the ball flew towards Yi Tianhua like lightning. When Yi Tianhua saw this small thunderclap pill, his originally calm face instantly disappeared and was replaced by a trace of seriousness. Yi Tianhua tilted his body slightly and dodged the thunderbolt ball that Zhang Chunren threw at him. Just as he was about to turn around, he suddenly heard a loud bang. Yi Tianhua only felt his whole body tremble, and immediately after, a huge scorching force came from the explosion. His heart was immediately shocked, and he hurriedly jumped. Only then was he able to dodge the explosive attack of the thunderclap ball. Before Yi Tianhua could catch his breath, suddenly, a slight sound of something breaking through the air came from the front. Yi Tianhua was startled, and he didn't have time to catch his breath. He leapt up into the air. Just as Yi Tianhua jumped up, the sound of an explosion came from below his feet. The scorching force came again, and this time Yi Tianhua's leg actually felt a dull pain from the explosion. Seeing this, Zhang Chunren was overjoyed. He quickly took out 3 thunderclap balls and threw them at Yi Tianhua, who was in the air. Boom! 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 After 3 loud explosions, a cloud of dust rose. Within the dust, Yi Tianhua let out a blood-curdling scream as he was blasted away by the explosion. Seeing this, Yuan Weiqing was overjoyed. He no longer cared about throwing thunderclap balls, and directly jumped up into the air, slashing at Yi Tianhua, who was in the dust. Seeing this, Zhang Chunren hurriedly kept the thunderclap balls in his hand, but in his heart, he knew that things were not good. Yuan Weiqing, be careful. Before Zhang Chunren could finish his words, a sword light flashed in the dust. Immediately after, Yuan Weiqing, who was rushing over, let out a scream as his whole body was blown up into the air, flying far away. Seeing this, Zhang Chunren panicked and hurriedly threw the thunderclap balls in his hand towards Yi Tianhua. Boom! The thunderclap balls exploded again, but this time, it missed. Yi Tianhua's figure had already flown out of the dust and landed not far away. After Yi Tianhua stabilized himself, Zhang Chunren saw his face clearly and stopped attacking. He suddenly let out a cold laugh. Yi Tianhua, do you still want to try my thunderclap balls? At this moment, Yi Tianhua was staggering. His left arm was slightly injured, and his expression was somewhat dispirited. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua suddenly roared, Zhang Chunren, do you really dare to attack me? Speaking up to this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply, he continued shouting. Zhang Chunren, aren't you afraid of causing a war between the two sects? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Yi Tianhua, to tell you the truth, I don't care about anything now. My son has already been killed by the snow leopard. You know, I only have one son. Without Huosheng, do you think I'm afraid of causing a war between the two sects? Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, he let out a cold laugh. Without waiting for Yi Tianhua to reply, he continued speaking. Yi Tianhua, I'm telling you, I'm not afraid of anything now. If you agree to my conditions now, I'll let you go this time. If you don't, I'll let you have a taste of the thunderclap balls of our South Region's secret thunder sect. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua gritted his teeth and turned to look at Xue Zhizheng. He shouted sternly, Hall Master Xue, Zhang Chunren doesn't care, but don't you care either? Do you have to provoke a war between the two of us before you're satisfied? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Xue Zhizheng was about to reply when Yi Tianhua suddenly shouted, Yi Tianhua, don't talk nonsense. Today your South Region's Shadow Alliance made a mistake. Even if word gets out, I won't be here. Maybe if the people of Jianghu hear it, they'll applaud me. Yi Tianhua, I'll ask you again, do you agree to my conditions? Yi Tianhua shook his head, Zhang Chunren, you're crazy. You're completely crazy. I've already said that I have to go back and investigate this matter before I can give you a satisfactory answer. Why are you in such a hurry? Zhang Chunren sneered and said, Yi Tianhua, I don't care about what you said. I just want you to agree to my conditions. Other than that, I don't care about anything else. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused and turned to look at Xue Zhizheng before continuing, Hall Master Xue, are you going to help me this time? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhizheng was in a difficult position. He had a fierce argument with Yi Tianhua just now, but he refused to use the Thunderbolt pill. His purpose was naturally to not cause a conflict between the two gangs. However, he had never expected that Zhang Chunren would use the Thunderbolt pill to deal with Yi Tianhua. If they were just arguing or fighting, it wouldn't be a big deal. How many people in Jianghu wouldn't be injured? No matter what the outcome was, everyone would just laugh it off. However, once the Thunderbolt pill was used, this was not a small matter. Because once the Thunderbolt pill was used to deal with Yi Tianhua, it meant that Yi Tianhua was already a great enemy. In this situation, as long as they were not careful, it would immediately lead to a situation where the two gangs fought. It was because of this reason that Xue Zhizheng did not use the Thunderbolt pill from the beginning to the end. It was because he did not want to cause a conflict between the two gangs. However, Zhang Chunren had used the Thunderbolt pill. This meant that his actions were likely to provoke a fight between the two sections. Thinking of this, Xue Zhizheng looked at Zhang Chunren with some annoyance. Vice Hall Master Zhang, how could you use the Thunderbolt pill? This is not a small matter. It could very easily cause a conflict between our two gangs. Don't you understand? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Hall Master Xue, you just said that you could help me. But why didn't you do it? Instead, you are blaming me here. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhizheng was stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. Zhang Chunren, you can't let your emotions get the better of you. If it causes a conflict between our two gangs, wouldn't that be terrible? After hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Hall Master Xue, I don't want to do this either, but you saw it. Tianhua refused to agree to my conditions. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to just watch him leave and not do anything? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but immediately after, he roared and continued to speak without waiting for Shui Zhijing's reply. Hall Master Shui, I can't do it. It's clearly Tianhua's fault. How can I let him go? Hall Master Shui, can't you see that Tianhua wants to sneak away and then deal with our South County's secret thunder sect? If we let him go, we'll never have the chance to find him again. Hall Master Shui, you have to think carefully. You can't mess up the important matter. When Tianhua's plan succeeds, it'll be too late even if you want to regret it. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, before Shui Zhijing could answer, Tianhua was already furious. Zhang Chunren, don't talk nonsense there. Although your son was killed by the snow leopard and I sympathize with you and have been enduring, if you continue to talk nonsense like this, don't blame me for being impolite. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Tianhua, I saw through your thoughts. You're a little angry, right? Tianhua heard this and shouted sternly, Zhang Chunren, I've already warned you. If you continue to talk nonsense, I won't be polite to you. Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, do you think I'm afraid of you? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, immediately after, he didn't wait for Tianhua to reply and continued speaking. Tianhua, I'm not afraid of you. What can you do to me? Our Hall Master Shui is here. Even if you want to do anything to me, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Tianhua gritted his teeth. Zhang Chunren, if you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame me for being impolite to you. Hearing this, Zhang Chunren suddenly stretched out his hand and opened his palm. A thunderbolt pill appeared in the middle of his palm. Tianhua, do you know what this is? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, immediately after, he didn't wait for Tianhua to reply and continued speaking. Tianhua, this is our sect's thunderbolt pill. You've seen its power. Do you want to try it again? Seeing the thunderbolt pill in Zhang Chunren's hand, Tianhua was shocked. He couldn't help but take a step back and shouted sternly. Zhang Chunren, do you really want to fight again? Looking at Tianhua's nervous expression, Zhang Chunren suddenly laughed out loud. Tianhua, don't tell me you're scared too? Didn't you say that you didn't care about us? Why are you scared now? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. Tianhua, if you're scared, I advise you to agree to my conditions as soon as possible. That way, I won't hurt you if I really attack you. When that time comes, even if you want to regret it, it'll be too late. Tianhua gritted his teeth and suddenly laughed coldly. Zhang Chunren, although you have the thunderbolt pill, I can tell you that if I want to die together with you, your thunderbolt pill alone won't be able to stop me. At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment. However, immediately after, he sighed and continued speaking without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply. Zhang Chunren, if you don't want to die together with me, I advise you to put the thunderbolt pill away. Otherwise, when the time comes, I don't believe that you won't regret it. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, I don't believe it. I don't believe that you still have time to die together with me under the attack of the thunderbolt pill. Tianhua, under the attack of my thunderbolt pill, no one can escape unscathed. Even you are no exception. Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, if you don't believe me, you can try. If you don't regret it, throw out the thunderbolt pill in your hand now. When the time comes, you'll know whether I'm telling the truth or not. At this moment, LV Hushan's voice suddenly sounded. Hall Leader Shui, Yuan Weiqing's injuries aren't light. Quickly come over and take a look. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Shui Zhijing was shocked. Only then did he remember that when Yuan Weiqing attacked Tianhua, he was sent flying by Tianhua. Shui Zhijing quickly turned his head and saw Yuan Weiqing lying there motionless. He was even more shocked and quickly walked over. Before Shui Zhizheng could get close, LV Hushan had already said with some grief and indignation, "Yi Tianhua is too ruthless. He didn't show any mercy at all. He wants to kill Yuan Weiqing." Shui Zhizheng hurried to Yuan Weiqing's side. After seeing Yuan Weiqing's appearance clearly, he could not help but be shocked. Yi Tianhua's sword just now had actually cut off Yuan Weiqing's arm. Seeing this result, Shui Zhizheng's expression immediately became ugly. No matter what, Yuan Weiqing was still a member of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. Even if Yuan Weiqing had done something wrong as the hall leader, he should be the one to punish him. Chapter 685. Shui Zhizheng quickly walked to Yuan Weiqing's side and checked his injuries. Only then did he feel slightly relieved. Although Yuan Weiqing's arm was cut off, his life was not in danger. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. Under Yi Tianhua's sharp sword light, to be able to only suffer such a small injury was already considered lucky. Shui Zhizheng slowly stood up and turned his head to look at Yi Tianhua. He said coldly, "Yi Tianhua, you're so cruel. How could you do such a thing? I think you're the one who wants to start a war between our two gangs." Hearing Shui Zhizheng's question, Yi Tianhua shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "Hall Master Shui, you saw it just now. Being chased by so many thunderbolt pills, it's really difficult to protect myself. Just now, when Yuan Weiqing took the opportunity to sneak attack me, I didn't control my strength well and injured him. Although this is partly my fault, if Yuan Weiqing didn't sneak attack me, then he naturally wouldn't be injured. In the end, he only has himself to blame. It has nothing to do with me." This time, without waiting for Shui Zhizheng to speak, Zhang Chunren suddenly said loudly, "Yi Tianhua, don't talk so much nonsense. No matter what the reason is, Yuan Weiqing was injured by you. Can you blame others?" Yi Tianhua shook his head. "Zhang Chunren, if you didn't use the thunderbolt pill to attack me and Yuan Weiqing didn't take the opportunity to sneak attack me, Yuan Weiqing wouldn't have been injured. More importantly, how could I not control my strength and injured Yuan Weiqing? Zhang Chunren, I think this matter should have been left to you. It was you who used the thunderbolt pill to attack me first, that's why Yuan Weiqing was injured." Zhang Chunren gritted his teeth. "Yi Tianhua, no matter what, you cut off Yuan Weiqing's arm. You have to give me an explanation. Otherwise, I'll let you have a taste of the power of my thunderbolt pill." Yi Tianhua sighed. "Zhang Chunren, just now I accidentally injured Yuan Weiqing. Don't tell me you want me to hurt more people?" After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. "Yi Tianhua, you can't hurt anyone. You're already amazing for being able to escape from my thunderbolt pill. You still want to hurt others? You're dreaming." Yi Tianhua shook his head. "Zhang Chunren, I hope you don't try. If more people get hurt, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the responsibility." After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. "Yi Tianhua, things have already come to this point and you still want to quibble? Even now, you still don't repent and are still trying to scare people. Do you think that just because your martial arts are high, you can do whatever you want?" Yi Tianhua shook his head. "If I wanted to use martial arts to deal with you, I would have done it long ago. Why would I wait until now?" Zhang Chunren shook his head. "Yi Tianhua, you're not waiting. You're lying to us. You're making us think that you have no ill intentions." At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. Then, he snorted and continued without waiting for Yi Tianhua's reply. "Yi Tianhua, you don't know that I've already seen through your thoughts. No matter how you hide it, I know that you're lying to us. You just want to sneak away and continue to frame our South County's Tanlei sect, right?" Yi Tianhua sighed. "Zhang Chunren, why do you think of me as such a bad person? If I was really that bad, no one would be able to escape with just the few of you today. The reason why I didn't do that is to tell you that I really have no ill intentions. I just want to make up for this matter and investigate these things clearly. Other than that, I have absolutely no other thought. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at Shui Zhijing and said with a sneer, "Hall Master Shui, did you hear that?" At this moment, Yi Tianhua is still quibbling. He still wants to lie to us and make us continue to fall for his trick. He's secretly framing our South County's Tanlei sect. Hall Master Shui, we absolutely can't let him go this time. We must make him agree to our conditions. Otherwise, once he leaves, our South County's Tanlei sect will be in danger. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing was stunned for a moment. Then, he nodded and turned to look at Yi Tianhua. He said coldly, "Yi Tianhua, now I'll ask you again. Do you agree to our conditions? If you agree to our conditions, this matter will be dropped. If you don't agree, then don't blame me for being impolite." Zhang Chunren also shouted, "Hall Master Shui, we also have to ask Yi Tianhua for an explanation about Yuan Weiqing's matter. Otherwise, Yuan Weiqing would have been injured for nothing." Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, "Yuan Weiqing's arm is broken. Although he won't become a cripple, Yuan Weiqing's martial arts will definitely be greatly reduced in the future. We must avenge Yuan Weiqing. Hall Master Shui, don't you think so?" After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing turned to look at Yuan Weiqing, who was lying on the ground, and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, who had been silent all this time, suddenly roared, "Hall Master Shui, you must avenge me. You must not let Yi Tianhua go." Hearing this, Shui Zhijing clenched his teeth even tighter. He suddenly turned to look at Yi Tianhua and shouted sternly, "Yi Tianhua, tell me, how do you want to solve the matter of Vice Hall Master Zhang and Yuan Weiqing?" After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua sighed, "Hall Master Shui, I have to go back and investigate Zhang Chunren's matter before I can give you a satisfactory answer." Speaking of this, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, "As for Yuan Weiqing's matter, it has nothing to do with me. If Yuan Weiqing didn't want to take the opportunity to sneak attack me, I wouldn't have accidentally injured him. Therefore, since this matter has nothing to do with me, I won't care about it. Hall Master Shui, please understand that as long as it has something to do with me, I will solve it. However, I definitely won't care about Yuan Weiqing's matter." After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren was instantly enraged. He shouted sternly, "Yi Tianhua, do you think that you can ignore Yuan Weiqing just because you injured him? Let me tell you, you're dreaming. No matter what, as long as you hurt Yuan Weiqing, we won't let you go." After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua frowned and said in a low voice, "Zhang Chunren, I've said it before. Yuan Weiqing attacked me first, and I accidentally injured him afterward. If he didn't attack me first, I wouldn't have injured him. Therefore, he only has himself to blame. I have nothing to do with it." Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. "Yi Tianhua, this matter isn't up to you. No matter why Yuan Weiqing was injured, as long as you hurt Yuan Weiqing, you must take responsibility. Otherwise, we won't agree to your request." Yi Tianhua shook his head. "Zhang Chunren, if you say that, wouldn't you be acting shamelessly? This has nothing to do with me. If Yuan Weiqing didn't attack me first, he wouldn't have been injured. Zhang Chunren, no matter what you say, I won't be in the wrong. Therefore, I won't care." After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly took out a thunderbolt pill and sneered, "Yi Tianhua, I'll ask you again. Do you agree or not? If you don't agree, don't blame me for being impolite." Yi Tianhua looked at the thunderbolt pill in Zhang Chunren's hand and was shocked. Although he was shocked, he wasn't afraid. Just now, he was caught off guard by Zhang Chunren. If he was on guard, it would be impossible for Zhang Chunren to hurt him. Thinking of this, Yi Tianhua sneered and shook his head. "Zhang Chunren, I'll say it one last time. If you use the thunderbolt pill again, Xiao will blame me for being impolite. At that time, if I can't control the strength in my hand and hurt you too badly, don't blame me." After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren was shocked. He subconsciously turned his head to look at Shui Zhizheng and asked loudly, "Hall Master Shui, will you help me?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Shui Zhizheng looked at Yuan Weiqing, who was lying on the ground. He gritted his teeth and shouted sternly, "Yi Tianhua, are you really not going to agree to our conditions?" Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and nodded. "Hall Master Shui, I can't promise you. You saw what happened to Yuan Weiqing. This has nothing to do with me. If Yuan Weiqing didn't try to sneak an attack on me, he wouldn't have been injured. So, I definitely won't interfere in this matter." This time, without waiting for Shui Zhizheng's reply, Yuan Weiqing, who had forced himself to sit up, suddenly said loudly, "Yi Tianhua, you're trying to quibble. You did this on purpose. With your martial arts, how could you not control the strength in your hand? Who would believe you?" At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. Then, he took a few deep breaths and continued without waiting for Yi Tianhua to reply. "Yi Tianhua, I admit that I wanted to sneak an attack on you. However, even though I wanted to sneak an attack on you, I didn't want to seriously injure you. Yi Tianhua, if I wanted to seriously injure you, I only needed to throw a thunderbolt pill at you. However, I didn't do that. Instead, I went up to attack you. Don't you understand? I only wanted to restrain you. I never wanted to seriously injure you. Yi Tianhua, what about you? Even though I didn't want to seriously injure you, how did you treat me? You took advantage of that moment and used your superior martial arts to chop off my arm. Yi Tianhua, I know that you did it on purpose. If you wanted to control the strength in your hand, it would have been an easy thing to do. It's impossible for you to feel like you couldn't control your own strength like you said. Yi Tianhua, stop lying. Since you can do it, do you think you can hide it from others? Yi Tianhua, you can't hide it from us. Now, not only do you have to agree to our Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions, you have to compensate me. If you don't, I won't let you leave today." After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Yuan Weiqing, I'm telling the truth. At that time, I couldn't see you in the smoke. I only knew that someone was attacking me. Naturally, I couldn't let you attack me. I could only raise my sword." At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. "Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, I held back just now. If not, you wouldn't have just lost an arm. You would have been killed by me. Do you understand?" After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. "Yi Tianhua, you're saying that I should thank you for holding back after you cut off my arm?" Yi Tianhua shook his head indifferently. "Yuan Weiqing, I'm telling the truth. If I fought back with all my strength just now, you would have been killed by now. You wouldn't have the chance to speak here." Just as Yi Tianhua finished speaking, Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted, "Yi Tianhua, do you think we'll believe your words? Under the attack of the thunderbolt ball, you couldn't even take care of yourself. How can you talk about fighting back with all your strength? You're lucky that you were able to block Yuan Weiqing's attack. Yi Tianhua, don't quibble anymore. You did it on purpose just now. Although you couldn't fight back with all your strength, you used all your strength. That's why Yuan Weiqing was injured so badly." At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. Then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to reply, he continued. "Yi Tianhua, you heard Yuan Weiqing's words just now. The reason why he attacked you was because he didn't want to seriously injure you. Just now, when you were panicking, Yuan Weiqing only needed to throw another thunderbolt ball and you would naturally be seriously injured by the explosion. However, he didn't do that. This is enough to prove that Yuan Weiqing didn't have any ill intentions towards you. He really just wanted to remember you and didn't want to seriously injure you. However, you didn't appreciate it and instead took the opportunity to injure Yuan Weiqing to weaken our strength. Tianhua, am I right? Yuan Weiqing suddenly said loudly, Hall Master Shui, Tianhua has ulterior motives. You also saw it just now. Tianhua first used a trick to injure LV Hushan, weakening a part of our strength. Now, he pretended not to see me and broke my arm, weakening a part of our strength. Hall Master Shui, you must be careful. Now LV Hushan and I are seriously injured. Only you and Vice Hall Master Zhang are left. Our strength has been reduced by almost half. Hall Master Shui, Tianhua has ulterior motives. Without you noticing, he has already reduced our strength by half. He's really powerful. Zhang Chunren sneered and said, Of course he's powerful. Tianhua's methods are brilliant. He took the opportunity to anger us and then weakened our strength one by one. Most importantly, we couldn't see through it. This is the most powerful part. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Shui, this is the most powerful part of Tianhua. Without us noticing, he has already weakened our strength. Through this matter, I can be sure that Tianhua wants to leave this place. He must want to hide and continue to use this method to frame our South County's Tanlei sect. After weakening our strength to a certain extent, he will use thunderous methods to defeat our South County's Tanlei sect and take us as his subordinates. Hall Master Shui, now do you understand his sinister intentions? Chapter 686. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng's eyes turned cold. He glared fiercely at Tianhua and gritted his teeth. Tianhua, do you have anything else to say now? Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Hall Master Shui, you misunderstood me. How could I have such thoughts? The reason why I went back was to investigate this matter. I didn't go back to frame your South County's Tanlei sect as you think. This is useless. Hall Master Shui, you must believe me. I won't provoke a war between our two sections. This is not good for either of us. Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, Tianhua, do you think we will still believe you now? We have long understood everything you have done. You saw that we saw through your plan and wanted to leave here as soon as possible to continue your plan. Tianhua, your intentions are really sinister. We have to be careful. Now, 5 years of free information is our best defense. As long as you do something bad to us, we will immediately use the 5 years of free information to fight back. At that time, I believe you won't dare to die with us. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren said loudly, Tianhua, Yuan Weiqing is right. Hurry up and agree to our conditions so that we can let you go. Otherwise, we won't let you go no matter what. After hearing their words, Tianhua turned his head to look at Shui Zhizheng and asked solemnly, Hall Master Shui, do you believe what they said? Hearing Tianhua's question, Shui Zhizheng sighed. Tianhua, why wouldn't I believe it? Everything you have done proves that you are indeed what they said. Shui Zhizheng paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Tianhua's reply and continued to speak. Just as Yuan Weiqing said just now, he didn't intend to injure you seriously. If he really wanted to hurt you, he only needed to throw the thunderbolt ball in his hand at you. However, he didn't do that. He knew that your martial arts were higher than his, but he still attacked you. Yuan Weiqing's purpose is very obvious. He wants to control you, and his purpose is to make you agree to our conditions and seek justice for Vice Hall Master Zhang. But, Tianhua, what did you do? You took advantage of this opportunity to cut off Yuan Weiqing's arm to exhaust our strength. Tianhua, although you have successfully consumed our strength by doing this, it has also made me feel bitterly disappointed. I have gradually begun to believe that what they said is true. You really want to harm our South County's secret thunder sect to achieve your unspeakable goal. Tianhua, I really misjudged you. I thought you were a good man, but I never expected you to be such a bad person. How disappointing. After hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, Tianhua couldn't help but frown. Then, he sighed. Hall Master Shui, what can I say to make you believe me? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Yi Tianhua, as long as you agree to my conditions, Hall Master Shui will naturally believe you. Don't you understand? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua sighed again. Zhang Chunren, you know I won't agree. I will only give you an answer after investigating this matter. Otherwise, I will never agree. Yuan Weiqing suddenly shouted from the side, Yi Tianhua, no matter what, I was injured by you. You won't deny this, right? Yi Tianhua nodded. Yuan Weiqing, you were indeed injured by me. However, if you didn't sneak attack me, how could I hurt you? So, your matter has nothing to do with me. Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was so angry that he glared at Yi Tianhua. He said angrily, Yi Tianhua, I just want to ask you, was my arm cut off by you? Hearing this, Yi Tianhua nodded. That's right, I did cut it. Yuan Weiqing sneered. Yi Tianhua, since you cut off my arm, don't you have anything to say? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Although I sympathize with you, this matter has nothing to do with me, so I have nothing to say. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said angrily, Yi Tianhua, do you mean that you don't want to care about my arm injury? Yi Tianhua shook his head. This matter was caused by you. You can only blame yourself for not learning well. It has nothing to do with me, so I won't care about this matter. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered and nodded. Yi Tianhua, are you saying that I was injured because I didn't learn well enough? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he roared. Without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him, he continued. Yi Tianhua, since you said so, don't blame me for being rude. I'll let you have a taste of the power of our South region's secret Thunder Sex Thunderclap pill. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren also shouted, Yi Tianhua, if you don't agree to our conditions, don't blame us for being rude. As he spoke, Zhang Chunren took out 3 thunderclap pills and looked like he was ready to attack. Seeing this, Yi Tianhua became nervous. He looked at Shui Zhijing with burning eyes and shouted, Hall Master Shui, do you really want to start a fight between our two sects? Shui Zhijing looked at Zhang Chunren, then looked at Yuan Weiqing, then turned to look at Yi Tianhua, and said coldly, Yi Tianhua, you were in the wrong in this matter. You refused to agree to our conditions. Yi Tianhua, if you agree to our conditions now, we can let you go this time. We definitely won't do anything to you. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, you should see clearly what happened today. Which of these two things is my fault? Hall Master Shui, the first thing that Zhang Chunren said, if it were you, would you agree so rashly? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he didn't wait for Shui Zhijing to answer him and continued. Hall Master Shui, you wouldn't. If it were you, you definitely wouldn't agree. Then why should I agree? As for the second thing, I don't care what Yuan Weiqing said. I only saw Yuan Weiqing sneak an attack on me. Helpless, I panicked and attacked a little too hard, seriously injuring Yuan Weiqing. But can this be blamed on me? If Yuan Weiqing didn't sneak attack me, how could he be injured? Hall Master Shui, I'm not making excuses. This is the truth. Since it has nothing to do with me, why should I care? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was instantly enraged. He shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, don't try to twist words and force logic. You injured me, so you have to be responsible for my injuries. No matter what your reason is, you have to compensate me. Otherwise, I definitely won't agree. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing frowned and turned to look at Yi Tianhua. He said slowly, Yi Tianhua, no matter what, let's put Zhang Chunren's matter aside for now. You have to settle Yuan Weiqing's matter. Yi Tianhua sighed, but this matter has nothing to do with me. Why should I settle it? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, If I have to settle this matter, then doesn't that mean that I have to take responsibility for anyone who has attacked me in the future? Hall Master Shui, I'm afraid that no one would say that it's you, right? Before Shui Zhijing could say anything, Yuan Weiqing had already shouted, Tianhua, you're talking nonsense again. I've already said that I didn't mean to harm you. I only wanted to control you so that you could agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions. But you took advantage of this opportunity to severely injure me. Tianhua, do you dare to say that what you did was right? Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I don't dare to say that what I did was right. However, when you sneak attacked me, I only fought back in a panic. I didn't know how to control myself and hit you a little too hard. However, I can only apologize to you. As for taking responsibility, that's impossible. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Yuan Weiqing suddenly turned his head to look at Shui Zhijing and said loudly, Hall Master Shui, Tianhua is unreasonable. It seems that we can only take him down to make him agree to our conditions. Hall Master Shui, please. I hope that you can avenge me and restore the prestige of the Tanlei sect in the South County. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua said angrily, Yuan Weiqing, you're talking nonsense. Hall Master Shui is a reasonable person. Why would he listen to your nonsense? Yuan Weiqing sneered when he heard this. Tianhua, how am I speaking nonsense? Hall Master Shui has seen everything that happened here. Does he still not understand who's right and who's wrong here? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused and turned to look at Shui Zhijing before continuing, Hall Master Shui, you saw what happened just now. Whether I said anything or not, you know better than anyone else. You must not listen to Tianhua's nonsense and fall into his trap. After hearing their words, Shui Zhijing couldn't help but frown. He turned to look at Tianhua and said in a deep voice, Tianhua, Yuan Weiqing really didn't mean to hurt you just now. You misunderstood him and injured him heavily. It's your fault, so you must take responsibility. Otherwise, I won't agree. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Tianhua smiled bitterly. Hall Master Shui, at that time, how could I know what Yuan Weiqing wanted to do? Don't forget that the thunderbolt pills of your Tanlei sect might fly at me at any time. Hall Master Shui, at that kind of life and death moment, how could I think so much? That's why I injured Yuan Weiqing a little too heavily. Hall Master Shui, I truly didn't do this on purpose. If you want me to take responsibility, I can only compensate within a limited range. However, if your conditions are too heavy, then I won't be able to accept them. After hearing Tianhua's words, Shui Zhijing turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked in a low voice, Yuan Weiqing, you heard Tianhua's words. Tell me, what compensation do you want? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sighed and looked at his broken arm. After a long silence, he slowly said, Hall Master Shui, my arm is broken. Tell me, what's the use of me in the future? Looking at the gloomy Yuan Weiqing, a trace of sadness suddenly surged in Shui Zhijing's heart. Shui Zhijing knew very well what it meant for a martial arts expert to lose an arm. Shui Zhijing sighed, Yuan Weiqing, just say it. What do you want from Tianhua? I'll make the decision for you. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing clenched his teeth. Now that my arm is broken, I can only live a normal life in the future. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing. In that case, I want 2 million gold coins. Hall Master Shui, Tianhua is using 2 million gold coins to exchange for my arm. This isn't too much, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing nodded and turned to Tianhua, slowly asking. Tianhua, you heard Yuan Weiqing's words. He wants 2 million gold coins. Do you agree? 2 million gold coins. Hearing this number, Tianhua was shocked and quickly said, Hall Master Shui, how could I have so many gold coins? At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Shui, if I had so many gold coins, Wouldn't I have agreed to Zhang Chuanren's conditions? It's because I don't have so many gold coins that I didn't agree to his conditions. Hall Master Shui, this is too much. Please forgive me for not agreeing. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhizheng frowned and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing, asking in a low voice. Yuan Weiqing, Yi Tianhua doesn't agree. At this point, Shui Zhizheng paused for a moment before probing. Yuan Weiqing, can you ask for less gold coins? If you ask for too much, I'm afraid Yi Tianhua won't be able to afford it. After hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and looked at his broken arm before slowly saying, Hall Master Shui, if Yi Tianhua is willing, I'll give him 3 million gold coins in exchange for one of his arms. Ask him if he's willing? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng was stunned for a moment before shaking his head with a bitter smile. Yuan Weiqing, don't joke around at this time. Think carefully about how much gold coins you want. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. Hall Master Shui, 2 million gold coins. Definitely not less. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before sighing. Without waiting for Shui Zhizheng to reply, he continued speaking. Hall Master Shui, I want to live a peaceful life. If I don't have any gold coins, what should I do? And the person who caused all this is Yi Tianhua. He has to take responsibility. Otherwise, even if I have to die with him, I won't agree. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng sighed inwardly. He understood Yuan Weiqing's current feelings very well. Chapter 687. Shui Zhizheng understood Yuan Weiqing's feelings, but he was also in a difficult position. Just now, no matter what the reason was, Yuan Weiqing did attack Yi Tianhua first. No one could deny this. Just as Yi Tianhua said, Yuan Weiqing attacked him first, and he was forced to fight back. Under these circumstances, whether Yi Tianhua was lying or not, he was not in the wrong. But Yuan Weiqing asked for 2 million gold coins, which put Shui Zhizheng in a difficult position. Not to mention Yi Tianhua, even Shui Zhizheng himself could not afford 2 million gold coins. Yuan Weiqing wanted so much gold coins, and Yi Tianhua could not afford it, so they could not reach an agreement. To be honest, Shui Zhizheng did not want to fight anymore. On Yi Tianhua's side, and Hongda and Du Wudai were both seriously injured and unconscious. On his side, although LV Hushan's injuries were lighter, Yuan Weiqing's injuries were more serious. One of his arms was broken. The most important thing was that Yi Tianhua's martial arts were high. If they continued to fight, there might be a big problem. At that time, both sides would have a miserable fight and it would definitely cause a dispute between the two gangs. This was the result that Shui Zhizheng did not want to see. Thinking of this, Shui Zhizheng sighed. Yuan Weiqing, think about it. Don't you think the gold coins you asked for is too much? Can you reduce it? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Hall Master Shui, I can't reduce it. One of my arms is crippled, and half of my martial arts is crippled. I trained so hard for so many years, but it was crippled by Yi Tianhua. Hall Master Shui, tell me, am I asking for more? My whole life has been wasted, and I've trained for nothing. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng sighed and turned to Yi Tianhua, saying in a low voice, Yi Tianhua, Yuan Weiqing does not agree to reduce the amount of gold coins. At this point, Shui Zhizheng paused for a moment before continuing, Yi Tianhua, I think you should think of a way to gather the gold coins. After all, it was not easy for Yuan Weiqing to cultivate his martial arts. Now that you have crippled him, you should give him some gold coins to settle this matter. After hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head and said with a bitter smile, Hall Master Shui, it's not that I don't want to agree, but Yuan Weiqing wants too much. Where am I going to find 2 million gold coins for him? Even if I agree, I won't be able to gather so many gold coins. Hearing Yi Tianhua's answer, Shui Zhizheng gritted his teeth. Yi Tianhua, think about it carefully. Since you've destroyed one of Yuan Weiqing's assets, you should give him 2 million gold coins. Isn't it reasonable? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Hall Master Shui, if I had it, I wouldn't be stingy and would definitely give it to Yuan Weiqing. However, 2 million gold coins is not a small amount. How could I possibly have it? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he sighed and continued without waiting for Shui Zhizheng's reply. Hall Master Shui, if I were to borrow and gather 2 million gold coins, wouldn't I have to repay it for the rest of my life? Yuan Weiqing's matter is not my fault. If he hadn't attacked me first, how could I have hurt him? Hall Master Shui, think about it. If Yuan Weiqing had stood far away from me, no matter how high my martial arts were, how could I have hurt him? Speaking of which, it wasn't because he wanted to sneak attack me that he got close to me. At that time, I couldn't hold back and hurt him. Hall Master Shui, if Yuan Weiqing wanted less gold coins, I would have given it to him for the sake of our two gangs. However, Yuan Weiqing actually wants so many gold coins. That's impossible. I can't repay the debt for the rest of my life just because I accidentally hurt someone who attacked me. Hall Master Shui, don't you understand this logic? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhizheng sighed in his heart. There was nothing he could do. Yi Tianhua was right. 2 million gold coins was such a large sum that even Yi Tianhua would have to repay it for the rest of his life. No one would be willing to do such a thing. Shui Zhizheng sighed. Just as he was about to speak, Yuan Weiqing suddenly said loudly, Yi Tianhua, I won't ask you to compensate me with gold coins. I just want you to break an arm so that we're even. What do you think? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua suddenly laughed coldly. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you. I've tolerated you for a long time. Yuan Weiqing, you make it sound nice. You didn't want to hurt me, so you chose to sneak attack me. However, do you think I'll believe you? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment. Then, he laughed coldly and continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing's reply. Yuan Weiqing, your purpose is to hurt me. Although I couldn't see your face clearly in the smoke just now, I could feel your sharp saber light. It was definitely not like what you said that you wanted to restrain me. Instead, you wanted to deal a heavy blow to me. Yuan Weiqing, am I right? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing's expression changed. However, he quickly reacted and shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, you're spouting nonsense. If I wanted to hurt you and hurt you heavily, why would I rush over? I only needed to throw a thunderbolt pill at you and the problem would be solved. Why would I take the risk? Yi Tianhua laughed coldly and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, do you think I'll believe you? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. At that time, even if you wanted to throw a thunderbolt pill, how could you see the target clearly? Since you couldn't see the target clearly, you naturally couldn't throw a thunderbolt pill. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment. However, he turned to look at Shui Zhizheng and continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing's reply. Hall Master Shui, the thunderbolt pill is so precious. Yuan Weiqing naturally wouldn't want to waste it. Therefore, he chose to attack me. He wanted to take advantage of the situation and sneak attack me when I was injured by the thunderbolt pill. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, before Shui Zhizheng could reply, Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, you must talk nonsense. Even if the thunderbolt pill of our Nanjun Tanlei sect is precious, we will definitely be willing to use it. What you said just now is the heart of a villain. Just now, Yuan Weiqing didn't want to hurt you, so he wanted to restrain you. In the end, he was used by you and was injured by you. Yi Tianhua, you're really ruthless. Not only did you take the opportunity to injure Yuan Weiqing, but you're also speaking nonsense and blaming Yuan Weiqing. What are your intentions? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua was immediately annoyed and shouted sternly, Zhang Chunren, who is speaking nonsense? You said that I did it on purpose. What evidence do you have? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Yi Tianhua to reply and continued speaking. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Yi Tianhua, with your martial arts, I don't believe that you won't be able to hold back even in a cloud of dust. Do you think we will believe your words? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Yi Tianhua to reply and continued speaking. Yi Tianhua, you did it on purpose. You've already injured LV Hushan, and now you've injured Yuan Weiqing. Do you need me to say what you want to do? Yi Tianhua gritted his teeth in anger. Zhang Chunren, did I do it on purpose? Don't forget, LV Hushan provoked me first, that's why I injured him. Yuan Weiqing also wanted to sneak attack me, that's why I accidentally injured him. At the end of the day, how can you blame this on me? They asked for it, that's why I hurt them. Clap clap, after hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and clapped his hands. Yi Tianhua, you're good at pretending. Even I almost believed you. However, it's a pity that you can't fool me. From the moment you didn't agree to my conditions, I knew that you definitely didn't have good intentions and wanted to attack us. As expected, you really did attack us. LV Hushan was injured by you, Yuan Weiqing was injured by you. Next, who do you want to hurt? Yi Tianhua heard this and shouted, Zhang Chunren, I don't want to hurt anyone. As long as you don't provoke me, I won't attack you. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sighed. Yi Tianhua, you're using this as an excuse to reject our conditions, right? Yi Tianhua shook his head. I can agree. I can definitely agree to your conditions. However, I can't. No matter what, I can't agree. Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, according to what you said, you won't agree to anything. Yi Tianhua shook his head. No, as long as your conditions aren't too much, I can definitely agree to your conditions. Not too much? Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, what do you mean by not too much? Are my conditions too much? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Yi Tianhua to reply and continued. Yi Tianhua, I want 1,000,000 gold coins. You only agreed to give me 500,000 gold coins. Yi Tianhua, you have to know that I lost my son, my only son. Do you think 500,000 gold coins can get my son back? Yi Tianhua, that's impossible. 1,000,000 gold coins isn't much. If you don't agree, does that mean that my conditions are too much? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua let out a long sigh. Zhang Chunren, I deeply sympathize with your experience. However, you have to give me some time to investigate this matter. Only after investigating this matter can I give you a satisfactory answer. This is not an excuse, I really want to do this. Don't you understand? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, stop lying to me. Is it too much for me to ask for 500,000 gold coins? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. Using my son in exchange for 500,000 gold coins, do you think I will be satisfied? Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Zhang Chunren, I still say the same thing. I didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't know about the news of the snow leopard in Qinling Mountain. You have to give me some time to investigate, right? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, I don't care if you know about this matter or not. In any case, you have to compensate me. 500,000 gold coins is definitely impossible. Therefore, you have to agree to my second condition. When Yuan Weiqing heard this, he said loudly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, there is also me. My arm was cut off by Yi Tianhua. He has to compensate me as well. Otherwise, I definitely won't agree. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren nodded and turned to look at Yi Tianhua with a cold smile. Yi Tianhua, you heard that right? Other than my matter, you have to settle Yuan Weiqing's matter today. Otherwise, we definitely won't let you leave today. Yi Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, I've already said that you're no match for me. If you attack me again and accidentally injure someone, it won't be good for either of our sections. So, you'd better think carefully about what to do about this matter. Yuan Weiqing suddenly said loudly, Tianhua, you don't have to think about it. You have to settle this matter for us today. Otherwise, even if I have to die with you, I definitely won't let you leave. Looking at the furious Yuan Weiqing, Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, why do you have to do this? We don't have any enmity between us, so why do you keep targeting me? I've already done all I can for you, but you're still forcing me. Yuan Weiqing, tell me, what do you want? After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing laughed coldly. Tianhua, I don't want anything. I just want to tell you that today's matter must be settled today. If you don't agree, even if we have to die together, we will fight you to the end. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua's expression changed. Just as he was about to speak, Shui Zhizhing, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, Tianhua, I think you should just agree. If you don't agree to today's matter, I'm afraid it will never end. Even if you escape today, do you think you will be safe in the future? At this point, Shui Zhizhing paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Tianhua to reply and continued to speak. Tianhua, this is impossible. Even if you escape today, they will probably chase you forever until they kill you. Tianhua, think about it carefully. Is it worth it for you to do this? After hearing Shui Zhizhing's words, Tianhua frowned. He had to admit that although Shui Zhizhing's words were unpleasant, they were definitely the truth. Tianhua turned his head to look at the furious Zhang Chunren and Yuan Weiqing. He was even more certain that what Shui Zhizhing said would happen. Chapter 688. Shui Zhizhing sighed when Tianhua remained silent. Tianhua, I think you should think of a way to agree. Otherwise, it won't do you any good. After hearing Shui Zhizhing's words, Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, I understand what you mean and your good intentions, but I have no choice. Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Shui Zhizhing's reply. He scoffed coldly and continued to speak. Hall Master Shui, their conditions are so high. Even if I want to agree, where am I going to find so many gold coins to satisfy their conditions? Hall Master Shui, unless they can lower their conditions, I won't be able to do it even if I agree to their conditions. Shui Zhizhing sighed when he heard Tianhua's words. He knew that Tianhua was speaking the truth. From the start, Zhang Chunren wanted Tianhua to give him 3 million gold coins to end this matter. Yuan Weiqing demanded 2 million gold coins from Tianhua for this matter, and he didn't even try to bargain. In this way, Zhang Chunren and Yuan Weiqing's conditions had reached a terrifying 5 million gold coins. Even Shui Zhizhing felt a little dizzy at the thought of 5 million gold coins. Shui Zhizhing was sure that Tianhua would never agree because the amount was too huge. If it were him, he would never agree to this condition either. Once Tianhua agreed, it would mean that he would have to repay his debt for the rest of his life. Thinking of this, Shui Zhizhing sighed. He turned to look at Zhang Chunren and said in a low voice, Vice Hall Master Zhang, can you lower your conditions a little? Say something that Tianhua can accept. What do you think? Zhang Chunren was stunned when he heard Shui Zhizhing's question. He then shook his head. Hall Master Shui, my conditions aren't high. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but immediately after, his eyes suddenly spat out flames of anger. Without waiting for Shui Zhizhing to answer his question, he coldly snorted and continued to speak. Hall Master Shui, Huosheng is my only son. Now, Huosheng is leaving me. Hall Master Shui, can you understand this kind of pain? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Shui Zhizhing nodded sadly. Although he had never experienced this kind of thing, he could understand it because he also had a son. If he thought about it from another perspective, Xue Zhizheng would not want to lose his son no matter how much the other party offered. He would not agree no matter how many gold coins the other party offered. Xue Zhizheng felt sympathy for Zhang Chunren and sighed. Zhang Chunren, I know you're upset, but I'm afraid that Tianhua won't agree to your conditions. Xue Zhizheng paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren to answer him. Instead, he sighed and continued on his own. Vice Hall Master Zhang, Tianhua's martial arts are strong. If he really wants to leave, I'm afraid none of us can stop him. If he really escapes and wants to hide, I'm afraid we won't be able to find him again. Vice Hall Master Zhang, in order to prevent that from happening, I feel that you should lower your conditions and resolve this matter. If it drags on, it'll be disadvantageous to both of us. What do you think? After hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Hall Master Xue, have you forgotten what I just said? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused before continuing. Hall Master Xue, the reason Tianhua did this was not just because of my son, Zhang Huoxing, but also because of the advanced craftsmen of the Secret Thunder sect in the South region. We've already lost 2 advanced blacksmiths. If Tianhua escapes now, he'll definitely target our advanced blacksmiths again. Once he succeeds, our South County's Secret Thunder sect will also be in danger. At that time, what should we do? Xue Zhizheng sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, it's also because of this reason that I don't want to fall out with Tianhua. I don't want to cause a conflict between our 2 sections. At that time, it won't be easy for both of us to clean up the mess. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Hall Master Xue, do you really think that you can exchange the peace between our 2 sects by blindly giving in? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Xue Zhizheng's reply. He snorted coldly and continued to speak. Hall Master Xue, let me tell you, this is impossible. Your tolerance will only make Tianhua want a yard after taking an inch, making him even more unscrupulous in dealing with our Tanlei sect. Hall Master Xue, it's precisely because of this reason that we have to fight back and protect the safety of our Tanlei sect. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhizheng frowned in confusion and asked tentatively, Zhang Chunren, what do you mean by this? What do we do to protect the safety of the Tanlei sect in the South County? Hearing Xue Zhizheng's question, Zhang Chunren sneered, Hall Master Xue, what I'm doing now is to protect the safety of our Tanlei sect in the South County. Don't you understand? Xue Zhizheng shook his head in confusion. Vice Hall Master Zhang, what did you do? Why didn't I see it? I only saw you asking Tianhua for conditions. Other than that, I didn't see anything else. Hearing Xue Zhizheng's confusion, Zhang Chunren sneered, Hall Master Xue, why don't you understand? I asked for conditions from them to protect the safety of our Tanlei sect in the South County. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Xue Zhizheng to answer his question, he snorted and continued. Hall Master Xue, what's the biggest problem now? We're worried that Tianhua will run away, hide, and secretly attack our Tanlei sect in the South County to slowly consume our strength. When our strength is consumed to a certain extent, Tianhua will use thunderous methods to destroy our Tanlei sect in the South County. If we deliberately guard against it, not only will we waste a huge amount of our manpower and material resources, but it won't be very effective. However, if we use my method, we can easily solve this problem. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Xue, think about it carefully. I asked Tianhua for 3 million gold coins, and Yuan Weiqing asked Tianhua for 2 million gold coins. If Tianhua agrees to the 5 million gold coins, I think that even if he wants to pay it off, I'm afraid he won't be able to do anything else for the rest of his life. He can only pay off the debt. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at Xue Zhizheng and sneered, Hall Master Xue, If Yi Tianhua is thinking about how to pay off the debt every day, then how will he have time to frame our Tanlei sect in the South County? At that time, since Yi Tianhua won't be able to deal with our Tanlei sect in the South County, our Tanlei sect will naturally be safe. Hall Master Shui, what do you think of my plan? Shui Zhizheng looked at Zhang Chunren with his mouth agape. After a long while, he came back to his senses and shook his head with a bitter smile. Zhang Chunren, although your idea is not bad, you're taking it for granted. Speaking of this, Shui Zhizheng paused for a moment before continuing. Vice Hall Master Zhang, think about it. If Yi Tianhua agrees to us here, what's the use of that? Even if he writes a contract, it's useless. Think about it. Just like what you said just now, if Yi Tianhua really wants to deal with our Tanlei sect in the South County, then even if he agrees to us and writes a contract for us as proof, our Tanlei sect in the South County is the target of our Tanlei sect. However, Yi Tianhua's goal is to deal with our South County's secret Thunder sect. He only needs to follow the original plan and it will be fine. When his plan succeeds and he destroys the Tanlei sect in the South County, the debt between you and Yuan Weiqing will naturally disappear. Yi Tianhua's contract can be said to be useless. Speaking of this, Shui Zhizheng paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to answer him, he sighed and continued. Vice Hall Master Zhang, so your plan is meaningless. It won't be of any use to our Tanlei sect in the South County. So, you'd better end this matter quickly, and let us think of another way to deal with Yi Tianhua. Hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, you still don't understand what I mean. Do you think I'll simply ask Yi Tianhua to write a contract? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Shui Zhizheng to answer him, he snorted and continued. Hall Master Shui, I won't do that. Don't I know that this won't be of any use? Hall Master Shui, to tell you the truth, I'll ask Yi Tianhua to write the contract. Most importantly, I'll ask Yi Tianhua to give me the gold coins. I won't let him owe me. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhizheng was a little puzzled. Vice Hall Master Zhang, Yi Tianhua has already said that it's impossible for him to take out so many gold coins. If you want him to give you so many gold coins, you can only let him owe you first and then write a contract. Vice Hall Master Zhang, if Yi Tianhua really had so many gold coins, he would have given them to us long ago. Why would he waste time talking nonsense with us? Even if an Hongda and Du Wudai were seriously injured by us, he didn't agree to give us the gold coins. Vice Hall Master Zhang, I'm afraid it's impossible for Yi Tianhua to pay the gold coins in one go. Yi Tianhua definitely can't take out so many gold coins, so how can you make him pay so many gold coins? Hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, do you really think that I'll let Yi Tianhua owe me gold coins? Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. Then, without waiting for Shui Zhizheng to reply, he snorted and continued. If I let Yi Tianhua owe me gold coins, then wouldn't it be useless? Therefore, I'll make him pay in one day. Only then will I end this matter and let him go. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhizheng couldn't help but frown. Zhang Chunren, I've already said that Yi Tianhua doesn't have so many gold coins. Even if he wants to, he can't take out so many gold coins. Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. It doesn't matter. I'll let him borrow. No matter how many he borrows, I won't let him off. But he must pay me back. Hearing this, Shui Zhizheng frowned even more. Vice Hall Master Zhang, what if Yi Tianhua can't borrow? Zhang Chunren turned to look at Shui Zhizheng and said with a smile, Hall Master Shui, does it have anything to do with us whether Yi Tianhua can borrow gold coins or not? Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for Shui Zhizheng to reply, he continued. Hall Master Shui, Yi Tianhua can choose not to pay us the gold coins he owes us. because once he destroys the Tanlei sect in the south region, he naturally won't have to pay us. It's precisely because of this reason that I'll let him borrow gold coins everywhere. When he's in debt, he naturally won't have the time to come to the Tanlei sect in the south region. It'll be even more troublesome because he has to pay his debts. Hall Master Shui, do you think I'm right? After hearing Zhang Chuanren's plan, Shui Zhijing immediately let out a breath of cold air. If Zhang Chuanren's plan was implemented, then Yi Tianhua's life would probably be over. The debt of 5 million gold coins was not so easy to pay back. Although Yi Tianhua was the boss of the South Region Shadow Alliance, the South Region Shadow Alliance was not opened by Yi Tianhua. He could not take all the gold coins for himself. Therefore, no matter how hard Yi Tianhua worked, these 5 million gold coins were enough for him to work hard for a long time. Thinking of this, Shui Zhijing frowned. Vice Hall Master Zhang, although your plan is very good, will Yi Tianhua be willing to cooperate with us? Shui Zhijing paused for a moment before continuing. Yi Tianhua must have thought of this. Why would he be willing to borrow so many gold coins? Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Zhang Chunren sneered. Hall Master Shui, so we need your help? Shui Zhijing was shocked. Vice Hall Master Zhang, do you mean that we have to subdue Yi Tianhua? Zhang Chunren nodded and said coldly, that's right. We can only force Yi Tianhua to agree to our conditions if we subdue him. Zhang Chunren turned to look at Shui Zhijing and asked with a smile, Hall Master Shui, you know my plan. I'm wholeheartedly thinking of the South Region's secret thunder sect. That's why I hope that you can agree to help me this time and deal with Yi Tianhua together. Hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Shui Zhijing frowned and then sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, you've seen Yi Tianhua's martial arts. Even if we join forces, I'm afraid we're not his match. It's harder than ascending to the heavens to subdue him. At this point, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment before continuing. Who knows, when we attack Yi Tianhua, we might end up like Yuan Weiqing and get seriously injured by Yi Tianhua. That wouldn't be worth it. Chapter 689. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Although Yi Tianhua's martial arts are strong, Hall Master Shui, have you forgotten that we are from the secret thunder sect in the South County? As long as we use the Thunderbolt pill, Yi Tianhua will definitely not be our match. Shui Zhijing frowned when he heard this. Zhang Chunren, the Thunderbolt pill is very powerful. If we accidentally hurt Yi Tianhua, I'm afraid it will cause a fight between the two gangs. At that time, it will be terrible. Zhang Chunren turned to look at Shui Zhijing and sighed. Hall Master Shui, I know you don't want the two gangs to fight, but Yi Tianhua doesn't think so. He even hopes that the two gangs will fight so that he can benefit from it. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and sighed before continuing. Hall Leader Shui, although you have good intentions, the other party has evil intentions. We can only be ruthless to him in order to stop him. After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Shui Zhijing frowned and turned to look at Yi Tianhua. He said with a bitter smile, Zhang Chunren, Yi Tianhua shouldn't be such a person, right? Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, if Yi Tianhua isn't such a person, why didn't he agree to my conditions? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Shui Zhijing's reply and continued to speak. Hall Master Shui, Yi Tianhua has already harmed my son, Zhang Huixing, and cut off one of Yuan Weiqing's arms in front of you. If I say that he doesn't have evil intentions, who would believe me? Shui Zhijing sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, I think that if Yi Tianhua really has evil intentions with his martial arts, wouldn't he have restrained us long ago? Why would he talk to us for so long? Zhang Chunren sneered. Hall Master Shui, you still fell for Yi Tianhua's trick. The reason why he did this was to put on an act and make us lower our guard. Then, he secretly dared to harm the secret thunder sect in the South County. When our craftsmen are almost exhausted, I can be sure that it will be time for Yi Tianhua to make his move. If that really happens, Hall Master Shui, it would be useless for us to say anything else. Shui Zhijing frowned. Vice Hall Master Zhang, are you saying that Yi Tianhua is pretending? Zhang Chunren nodded affirmatively. I can guarantee that Yi Tianhua won't agree to anything, but he won't offend us either. This isn't the best time yet. If our two gangs fight now, the Shadow Alliance won't necessarily win. Therefore, Yi Tianhua is waiting for an opportunity, waiting for our advanced craftsmen to be exhausted. Only then will he make his move. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Zhang Chunren, although what you said makes sense, I don't believe that Yi Tianhua is such a person. Zhang Chunren sneered. Hall Master Shui, I didn't expect Yi Tianhua to be this kind of person. Otherwise, why would I invite him here today? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and sighed deeply before continuing. Hall Master Shui, my son was harmed by them. I just want to take back my compensation. This shouldn't be too much, right? However, no matter what I say, Hall Master Shui, Yi Tianhua won't agree. He even injured you on Weiqing, but he still doesn't want to compensate. Hall Master Shui, do you still believe this kind of person? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing frowned and turned to look at Yi Tianhua in the distance. He said loudly, Yi Tianhua, since things have come to this, why don't we have a good talk? Hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua was overjoyed. He quickly nodded. All right, since Hall Master Shui has spoken, I will definitely do as you say. Let's have a good talk now. Seeing that Yi Tianhua had agreed so readily, Shui Zhijing's frown deepened. He said slowly, Yi Tianhua, our Deputy Hall Master Zhang's son was harmed by your information. You won't deny this, will you? Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Yi Tianhua's expression changed. He hesitated for a moment before saying slowly, Hall Master Shui, although we were the ones who provided you with the information about Qingling Mountain, and Deputy Hall Master Zhang's son was indeed harmed on Qingling Mountain, I admit this. However, as for the information about the snow leopard, I don't know if it's true or not, so I can't give you an answer. I can only wait until I've investigated thoroughly before I can solve this problem. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren was instantly enraged. He shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, even now you're still quibbling. You clearly knew that there was a snow leopard on Qingling Mountain, but you didn't tell us about it. My son was harmed by the snow leopard, but you don't want to take responsibility. Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he snorted coldly. He didn't wait for Yi Tianhua to answer his question and continued to speak. Yi Tianhua, don't even think about it. You harmed my son. The fact that I didn't seek revenge on you is already out of respect for our two factions. Now, you don't even want to compensate me. Yi Tianhua, even if I have to die with you, I won't let you off so easily. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Zhang Chunren, you keep saying that your son was harmed by the snow leopard, and that he was killed by the snow leopard when he was searching for the flaming crystal. However, I didn't see this happen. How do you expect me to believe you? Speaking up to this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Our Shadow Alliance has never made a mistake in terms of information. As for why we made a mistake this time, or rather, whether it was our Shadow Alliance's fault, I don't even know. How do you expect me to talk to you? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren roared angrily. Yi Tianhua, are you saying that I'm lying to you? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Deputy Hall Master Zhang, that's not what I meant. I'm just stating facts. I want to investigate this matter thoroughly and see if it was your fault or our Shadow Alliance's fault. Then, we can come up with a corresponding countermeasure. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren turned his head to look at Shui Zhijing. He gritted his teeth and said, Hall Master Shui, Did you hear that? Tianhua said that it was my fault and that I harmed my son. Hall Master Shui, does Tianhua have a conscience? Huoxing is my only son. How could I harm my only son? Hall Master Shui, you must make a decision on this matter and seek justice for me. After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Shui Zhizheng sighed and turned to look at Tianhua. He said loudly, Tianhua, do you want to settle this matter or not? Hearing this, Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Hall Master Shui, if you were me, would you agree to Zhang Chuanren's conditions without knowing the situation? Hearing Tianhua's answer, Shui Zhizheng subconsciously turned his head to look at Zhang Chunren. Seeing this, Zhang Chunren hurriedly said in a low voice, Hall Master Shui, you can't listen to him. This is obviously two different things. If it was someone else, I might believe him. However, Hall Master Shui, Tianhua has ulterior motives and intends to harm our Tanlei sect. If we don't find a way to restrain such a person, are we going to let him frame our Tanlei sect in peace? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Shui Zhizheng to answer him, he continued. Hall Master Shui, we are doing this to protect ourselves. If Tianhua agrees to our conditions, he will naturally have no time to deal with us, and we will be safe. Hall Master Shui, although we don't have any intention of dealing with the Shadow Alliance, we can't help but be on guard against them. If we let Tianhua leave so easily, it would be fine if we guessed wrong. However, if Tianhua really wanted to frame our South County's secret Thunder sect, then we would have missed a good opportunity. Hall Master Shui, you have to think carefully. After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Shui Zhizheng frowned and asked in a low voice, Vice Hall Master Zhang, you keep saying that Tianhua wants to harm us. Do you have any evidence? Hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment before he sneered, Hall Master Shui, do you need any evidence? Now that the evidence is conclusive, they used the news of Qingling Mountain to not only harm my son, Zhang Huoxing, but also the two senior craftsmen of our Nanjun Tanlei sect. Isn't Tianhua's intention obvious enough? Moreover, Tianhua refused to agree to our conditions and agreed not to save his two brothers. He also wanted to go back and say that he wanted to investigate this matter. However, Hall Master Shui, if this matter were to fall on your head, would you leave your two brothers behind and leave by yourself? Hearing Zhang Chuanren's question, Shui Zhizheng shook his head. No, since everyone came together, we naturally have to go back together. Otherwise, how would I tell my brothers? Zhang Chunren nodded. Hall Master Shui, you're right. Tianhua should have done the same, but Tianhua didn't do so. He chose to leave alone. What's his purpose? Although Tianhua said that he wanted to go back and investigate this matter, how can we believe his actions? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, we still don't know Tianhua wants to go back, but we have to be on guard because Tianhua might harm our South County's secret Thunder sect. Therefore, we must think of a way to control Tianhua and make him agree to our conditions. If Tianhua really has no ill intentions towards us, we can slowly relax the conditions in the future or even cancel them. However, if Tianhua really wants to harm our South County's secret Thunder sect, then we can use these conditions to attack the South County's Shadow Alliance and buy some time for our sect. Hall Master Shui, am I wrong to do this? After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Shui Zhizheng sighed in his heart. No matter what, Zhang Chuanren's words made sense. As the saying went, one should not have the heart to harm others, but one must have the heart to guard against others. No one knew why Tianhua wanted to go back. Did he want to go back and investigate this matter or continue to harm the Tanlei sect? More importantly, they could not rely on luck in this matter. If they were really unlucky, then the Tanlei sect of the South County would be in danger. However, if he followed Zhang Chuanren's words, Shui Zhizheng felt that it was inappropriate. After all, Yi Tianhua was the leader of the South County Shadow Alliance. If this matter was not handled properly, it was very likely that it would cause a fight between the two gangs. At that time, the problem would be even more serious. Thinking of this, Xue Zhijing fell into a dilemma. On one hand, he had to listen to Zhang Chunren and restrain Yi Tianhua. On the other hand, he had to try his luck and hope that Yi Tianhua really wanted to investigate this matter. However, if he was unlucky, something big would happen to the Tanlei sect of the South County. Seeing that Xue Zhijing could not make up his mind, Zhang Chunren hurriedly said, "Hall Master Xue, for the Tanlei sect of the South County, you have to think carefully. If Yi Tianhua really wants to harm us, it will be too late to regret it." Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Zhang Chunren, I believe you. However, you have to remember that we must not hurt Yi Tianhua. Otherwise we will be in big trouble." Hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren was overjoyed and hurriedly nodded. "Hall Master Xue, don't worry. As long as Yi Tianhua doesn't resist, I definitely won't hurt him." Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing frowned again. "Zhang Chunren, how is that possible? If we want to attack Yi Tianhua, how can he not resist?" Zhang Chunren sneered and nodded. "I understand. So, as long as Yi Tianhua resists, don't blame us for being impolite. If we really hurt him, don't blame us." Xue Zhijing sighed. "Zhang Chunren, I don't want to cause a fight between the two sections. That's why I don't want you to hurt Yi Tianhua. Don't you understand?" Zhang Chunren shook his head. "Hall Master Xue, Yi Tianhua has ill intentions towards our South County's Tanlei sect. If we don't do everything we can to restrain him, the consequences will be unimaginable. Hall Master Xue, Yi Tianhua's martial arts are strong. It's almost impossible for us to catch him without hurting him." Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Yi Tianhua to answer him and continued. "Yi Tianhua is too dangerous. We have to injure him first before we can control him. Otherwise, once Yi Tianhua senses something, I'm afraid we'll be the ones in danger." Xue Zhijing shook his head. "But if it causes a fight between our two sects, wouldn't that be terrible?" After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren sighed. "Hall Master Xue, Yi Tianhua already has ulterior motives towards our Tanlei sect in the South County. In addition, his martial arts are much higher than ours. If we worry too much and are injured by Yi Tianhua, then our Tanlei sect in the South County will be in danger." Chapter 690. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing was stunned for a moment. He turned to look at Yi Tianhua and began to hesitate. Yi Tianhua's martial arts were strong. None of the people present were his match. It could even be said that even if all the people on his side worked together, they would not be his match. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible to catch Yi Tianhua without hurting him. However, if Yi Tianhua was hurt, Xue Zhijing did not want to see the result. If it caused a fight between the two gangs, it would be a big problem. Zhang Chunren saw that Xue Zhijing did not answer his question, so he hurriedly said, "Hall Master Xue, don't hesitate. If we want to catch Yi Tianhua, we can only use the Thunderbolt Pill of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Other than that, it is almost impossible to catch him with our martial arts. Hall Master Xue, we can only try not to hurt Yi Tianhua now. If we hurt him, we can't do anything about it. However, we have to catch him. Otherwise, the Tanlei sect in the South County will be in danger." After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Xue Zhijing sighed and said slowly, "Vice Hall Master Zhang, in that case, we will do as you say." Xue Zhijing paused for a moment before continuing, "However, we still have to be careful. If we can avoid hurting Yi Tianhua, try not to hurt him. You have to remember." After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Zhang Chunren quickly nodded. "Don't worry. As long as Yi Tianhua does not resist, we will definitely not hurt him. Hearing Zhang Chuanren's promise, Xue Zhijing was slightly relieved. He turned to look at Yi Tianhua and asked loudly, Yi Tianhua, let's not talk about Vice Hall Master Zhang for now. What about Yuan Weiqing? Hearing Xue Zhijing's question, Yi Tianhua sighed. Hall Master Xue, I just said that if Yuan Weiqing did not want to sneak attack me first, how could I hurt him? Speaking of this, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment. However, he did not wait for Xue Zhijing to answer him. He snorted and continued speaking. Hall Master Xue, since he wanted to injure me first and I accidentally injured him, do you think that I should take responsibility for this? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Xue Zhijing sighed and said slowly, Yi Tianhua, no matter what, Yuan Weiqing was injured by you, and he was injured so badly. I hope you can compensate him. What do you think? After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua nodded. Of course, Hall Master Xue. As long as Yuan Weiqing's conditions are not too excessive, I will definitely agree. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Xue, I don't want our two factions to fight over this matter. Hearing Yi Tianhua's answer, Xue Zhijing nodded. Yi Tianhua, I understand what you mean. I don't want our two gangs to fight, so I hope that we can solve this peacefully. Yi Tianhua, in the underworld, even if you take a step back, it will only be good for you and not bad. If you take a step back to us today, we might take a step back to you tomorrow. Isn't that good? Yi Tianhua nodded with a smile. Hall Master Xue, you're right. As long as everyone takes a step back, everything can be solved. Xue Zhijing nodded and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. He asked in a low voice, Yuan Weiqing, why don't you take a step back and solve this matter? After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Hall Master Xue, as you can see, my arm is so badly injured that I've become a cripple. If I don't ask for more gold coins, what should I do in the future? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, Xue Zhijing was stunned for a moment before shaking his head. Yuan Weiqing, you're thinking too much. Even if you've become a cripple, do you think the secret Thunder sect of the South region will not care about you? Xue Zhijing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing's reply and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, how can the secret Thunder sect of the South region not care about you? Don't worry. Moreover, you've only injured your arm and not become a cripple. What's there to worry about? As long as I, Xue Zhijing, am here, I will never let you suffer. Yuan Weiqing, do you believe me? After hearing Xue Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and shook his head. Hall Master Xue, my arm is already broken, so I don't plan to stay in the secret Thunder sect of the South region anymore. I want to live my own life. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused and took a deep breath before continuing, Hall Master Xue, you also know that if you want to live a peaceful life, you'll need a lot of gold coins. If I don't ask for more gold coins from Yi Tianhua, what should I do in the future? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Xue Zhijing's reply and continued to speak. Hall Master Xue, will I ask for more gold coins from the secret Thunder sect of the South region in the future? That's impossible. Even if I'm starving, I definitely won't do such a thing. Hall Master Xue, if I want to solve this problem, I can only ask Yi Tianhua to compensate me with more gold coins. Only then can I live a peaceful life. I hope you can support me. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhijing frowned. After a long time, he slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, isn't the amount of gold coins you want a little too much? Yi Tianhua definitely can't take out 2 million gold coins. What's more, Vice Hall Master Zhang also wants Yi Tianhua to take out 3 million gold coins. In this case, Yi Tianhua will have to take out 5 million gold coins. Yuan Weiqing, think carefully. Is it possible for Yi Tianhua to take out so many gold coins? Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. Hall Master Xue, why not? As long as Yi Tianhua wants to, he will definitely be able to take out 5 million gold coins. But if he doesn't want to, he won't be able to take out 1 million gold coins. Hall Master Shui, you must not be deceived by Tianhua. He has other motives now, so he won't agree to our conditions. Shui Zhijing frowned. Yuan Weiqing, you said that Tianhua has other motives. Then tell me, what is his motive? Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. Hall Master Shui, do I still need to say what Tianhua's motive is? Shui Zhijing shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you'd better tell me. Let me hear it. What is Tianhua's motive? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sighed. Hall Master Shui, until now, LV Hushan and I have been injured. Although LV Hushan's injury is lighter than mine, it has caused him to lose a lot of combat power. What about me? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused and laughed bitterly before continuing. Hall Master Shui, I have been crippled by Tianhua. It can be said that I have completely lost my combat power. We came here with a total of 4 people, but in such a short time, 2 of us have already been seriously injured. If this drags on, I believe that more of us will be injured. In the end, we might all be subdued by Tianhua. Hall Master Shui, if that happens, I'm afraid that will be Tianhua's ultimate motive. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing was shocked and asked with a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, you're saying that Tianhua wants to subdue all of us? Yuan Weiqing nodded. That must be it. Hall Master Shui, don't you have any doubts? Think about it. From the start, Tianhua said that he wanted to go back and investigate this matter. But after so long, has he left? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Shui Zhijing's reply. He snorted coldly and continued to speak. Hall Master Shui, after so long, Tianhua didn't leave and is still talking to us. However, although Tianhua didn't leave, we are in a bad situation. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a while before continuing. Hall Master Shui, Tianhua wanted to leave, so we naturally wouldn't let him go. Hence, while we were obstructing him, he injured LV Hushan and me without attracting your attention. Hall Master Shui, isn't this suspicious? Hearing this, Shui Zhijing heaved a sigh of relief and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I think you're wrong. Although Tianhua injured you and LV Hushan, we also injured an Hongda and Duwudai. Is there anything wrong with that? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. No, this is very wrong. Although we injured an Hongda and Duwudai, it didn't affect Tianhua's combat power. However, Tianhua injured me and LV Hushan, which really affected our combat power. It can be said that if we weren't the enemies of the secret Thunder sect in the South County and had firearms that Tianhua was afraid of, I believe that Tianhua would have restrained all of us and wouldn't talk nonsense with us. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Shui Zhijing's reply. He snorted coldly and continued to speak. I believe that it won't be long before Tianhua's next target will be you and Vice Hall Master Zhang. At that time, no matter which one of you is injured, your combat power will plummet. I think that at that time, Tianhua won't need to disguise himself and will directly attack us and restrain us. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing frowned. Yuan Weiqing, could it be that this is Tianhua's real purpose? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing nodded and answered affirmatively, of course. Do I have any evidence for what I'm saying? Hearing this, Shui Zhijing was shocked and asked quickly, Yuan Weiqing, you have evidence? What evidence? Tell me quickly. Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Yuan Weiqing sneered. Hall Master Shui, think about it. With Tianhua's martial arts, if he wants to leave, who can stop him? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Shui Zhijing's reply. He snorted coldly and continued to speak. Hall Master Shui, because Tianhua has a purpose for staying, he can't leave. Even if his martial arts are higher than ours, he can't leave. Hall Master Shui, don't you understand? Yi Tianhua said that he wants to leave, but that's just a ploy. His real purpose is to get us to stop him, and then, when we're not paying attention, he'll injure us one by one. Once we've lost more than half of our strength, that's when Yi Tianhua will turn on us. Hall Master Shui, now you understand Yi Tianhua's real purpose for staying, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng's expression turned ugly. He subconsciously turned to look at Yi Tianhua, his heart filled with doubts. Could it be that Yi Tianhua's real purpose was to leave? Just like what Yuan Weiqing said, the reason why he said that he wanted to leave was not because he really wanted to leave, but because he wanted everyone to stop him so that he could take the opportunity to make a move. When everyone was not paying attention, he would exhaust the strength of his side. Seeing Shui Zhizheng deep in thought, Yuan Weiqing spoke again. Hall Master Shui, think about it. Why didn't Yi Tianhua agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions? When Shui Zhizheng heard this, he turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked curiously, do you know why Yi Tianhua didn't agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions? Yuan Weiqing nodded and sneered. At first, I didn't know either. But after so many things, I finally know that Yi Tianhua had planned all of this from the start. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Shui Zhizheng to reply and continued, Hall Master Shui, think about it. Hall Master Shui, think about it. If Yi Tianhua agreed to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions, would we still stop him from leaving? Of course not, we're not unreasonable people. Since Yi Tianhua agreed to our conditions, what reason do we have to stop him from leaving? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing. Yi Tianhua naturally knows that since he agreed to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions, we'll naturally let him go. However, this isn't Yi Tianhua's purpose. He wants us to stop him from leaving so that he can take the opportunity to attack us. That's why Yi Tianhua didn't agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions, because as long as he didn't agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions, we won't let him go easily. This is also Yi Tianhua's plan. He took the opportunity when we stopped him to weaken our strength. Hall Master Shui, do you understand now? Vice Hall Master Zhang asked for 3 million gold coins, but Yi Tianhua said he didn't have it and refused to agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions. However, I can guarantee that even if Vice Hall Master Zhang only asked for 1 million gold coins, Yi Tianhua wouldn't agree. Because Yi Tianhua didn't want to give a single gold coin, so he naturally wouldn't agree. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng frowned even more. He started to believe Yuan Weiqing's words. Yi Tianhua's behavior during this period of time was almost exactly as Yuan Weiqing said. Yi Tianhua refused to agree to Zhang Chuanren's conditions and even said that he was going to leave, but he didn't. Chapter 691. Shui Zhizheng was puzzled. Could it be that Yi Tianhua was really such a person? The reason why he did not leave was because he wanted them to stop him so that he could take the opportunity to kill him? Shui Zhizheng turned to look at Yi Tianhua in the distance. He felt that he was not such a person, so he was even more puzzled. Although Yi Tianhua did not seem like such a person, everything he did was just as Yuan Weiqing had said. He was not wrong at all. Although Shui Zhizheng felt that his martial arts were very high, he knew very well that he was still far inferior to Yi Tianhua. Just by looking at Yi Tianhua's attack on Yuan Weiqing, Shui Zhizheng felt that even he might not be able to dodge that attack. Since Yi Tianhua had such superb martial arts, why didn't he leave? Yi Tianhua did not want to agree to Zhang Chuanren's conditions, but he did not want to leave either. What did he want to do? Was it really as Yuan Weiqing had said? Was he waiting for them to stop him? Shui Zhizheng was not sure, so he decided to test him again to see what kind of person Yi Tianhua was. If Yi Tianhua was really the kind of person Yuan Weiqing had said, Shui Zhizheng would not let him go no matter what. Thinking of this, Shui Zhizheng turned to look at Yi Tianhua and asked loudly, Tianhua, let me ask you, does Vice Hall Master Zhang's matter have anything to do with your South County Shadow Alliance? When he heard Shui Zhizheng's question, Tianhua sighed. Hall Master Shui, I admit that we were the ones who sold you the information on Qingling Mountain. However, I really don't know anything about the snow leopard. Therefore, we still have to investigate this matter thoroughly. Right now, I can't answer you. At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Shui, as long as I investigate this matter thoroughly, I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer in the shortest time possible. What do you think? Hearing Tianhua's answer, Shui Zhizheng suddenly sneered. Tianhua, so you're saying that you don't want to admit that this is the fault of your South County Shadow Alliance? Tianhua sighed, Hall Master Shui, this is not a matter of admitting it or not, but what the truth is. If it is really the fault of our South County Shadow Alliance, then the answer I will give you will definitely satisfy you. Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Shui Zhizheng's reply. He scoffed coldly and continued to speak. Hall Master Shui, if this matter is the fault of your South County's secret thunder sect, then please forgive me for not being able to promise you anything. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Shui Zhizheng's eyes narrowed. He sneered and said, Tianhua, do you think that this matter is the fault of the secret thunder sect in the South County? Tianhua shook his head. Hall Master Shui, I don't know what's going on. That's why I want to go back and investigate. I want to know what the problem is so that I can decide what to do next. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Shui Zhizheng sneered. Tianhua, do you think that the matter of Deputy Hall Master Zhang's son being killed is fake? Tianhua shook his head. I don't know. I only heard the news, but I didn't see the truth. Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Shui Zhizheng's reply and continued to speak. Hall Master Shui, for so many years, our South County Shadow Alliance has never made such a mistake, so I think there must be a problem. Moreover, the probability of us making a mistake is really small. Hall Master Shui, every time we investigate we send more than one person. Just like this time, for the investigation of the Green Tower Mountain. For safety reasons, we sent a total of 5 experts. These 5 people went to the Green Tower Mountain together to investigate the flaming soaring rock. But after they came back, they didn't tell me that there was a snow leopard around the flaming stone. Hall Master Shui, think about it. When we were investigating Qingling Mountain, even if no one saw the snow leopard, how could the 5 of us not see the snow leopard? Hall Master Shui, don't you think it's strange? The snow leopard has its own territory. 5 people broke into its territory, but the snow leopard didn't come out to chase them away. Why is that? So, there are many suspicious points in this matter. I want to go back and investigate thoroughly to see what went wrong. Did we make a mistake, or did you make a mistake? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted, Tianhua, are you suspecting that we're lying to you? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he turned to look at Shui Zhizheng, and continued without waiting for Tianhua to answer him. Hall Master Shui, Tianhua said that they sent 5 people to Qingling Mountain to investigate the flaming stone, so they can't be wrong. However, we went to Qingling Mountain to collect the flaming stone this time. How could there be so few people? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Shui, apart from my son and 2 senior craftsmen, there were also 10 craftsmen's apprentices who went to Qingling Mountain this time. Only 1 craftsman's apprentice managed to make it back. The rest were all killed by the snow leopard. Hall Master Shui, if it was only my son, it could be faked. However, so many people were killed by the snow leopard. How could it be faked? Furthermore, Huosheng is my only son. Why would I use him as a scapegoat? Losing Huosheng is equivalent to losing everything. Hall Master Shui, even if you asked me to exchange Huosheng, I would do it without hesitation. I wouldn't even frown. Hall Master Shui, think about it. Why would I use my only son to do such a thing? As soon as Zhang Chunren finished speaking, Yuan Weiqing chimed in loudly, Hall Master Shui, Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. I don't think anyone would use their only son to do such a thing. After listening to their words, Shui Zhijing sighed in his heart. The reason why he believed Zhang Chuanren's words and was willing to come over to help was that Zhang Huixing was indeed Zhang Chuanren's only son. There was absolutely no mistake about this. Shui Zhijing also had a son. He could guarantee that no matter how much money someone offered him, he wouldn't joke about his son. Therefore, he trusted Zhang Chunren and believed that he wouldn't lie to him. Shui Zhijing sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, don't be sad. I will ask Yi Tianhua to compensate you accordingly. Zhang Chunren shook his head bitterly. Yi Tianhua isn't a good person. I've already suffered so much, yet he still refuses to agree to my terms. Hall Master Shui, we absolutely can't let Yi Tianhua go. We must make him agree to my and Yuan Weiqing's terms. After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Yuan Weiqing also sighed. Hall Master Shui, this isn't just a matter of agreeing to our terms. We also have to use these terms to prevent Yi Tianhua from harming our Nanjun Tanlei sect. Zhang Chunren also nodded. If Yi Tianhua really wants to harm our Nanjun Tanlei sect, we really can't do anything to him. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Shui, think about it. Once Yi Tianhua leaves this place, it will be almost impossible for us to find him again. If Yi Tianhua leaves this place, he will find an opportunity to deal with us. At that time, it will be too late for us to regret it. Yuan Weiqing sighed. The most important thing is that we can't leave the news of the Nanjun Shadow Alliance. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren also sighed and said slowly, Our Nanjun Tanlei sect needs too many ores to make the Thunderbolt pills, and we can't find these ores. We can only rely on the Nanjun Shadow Alliance to send us news, so that we can find the ores we urgently need. But in this way, if Yi Tianhua wants to harm us, it's simply a piece of cake. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, just like what happened on Qingling Mountain this time, he only needs to send us a fake news. No, it's a real news, just like the flaming stone on Qingling Mountain. None of us can deny that there's a flaming stone on Qingling Mountain. However, if Yi Tianhua tells us that there's a new kind of ore somewhere and that there's also a monster like the snow leopard in this place, wouldn't we fall into his trap again? At that time, we'll still lose Senior Blacksmith. After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly. The most important thing is that as long as we go to find those ores, we must send Senior Blacksmith. This also gives Yi Tianhua a chance. Yi Tianhua only needs to choose a place with ferocious beasts and tell us that there are ores just like what happened on Qingling Mountain. We'll naturally send people to look for them. At that time, I'm afraid we'll end up like Qingling Mountain. I believe that in a few times, our senior blacksmiths will be exhausted in Yi Tianhua's plan. At that time, when our strength weakens, Yi Tianhua will suddenly make a move and destroy the Tantra sect of the South County. Of course, he won't really let the Tantra sect of the South County disappear. Instead, he wants the Tantra sect of the South County to belong to him. Hall Master Shui, our only chance now is to make him agree to our conditions. As long as Yi Tianhua is disadvantageous to us, we can use this information to deal with Yi Tianhua. After hearing what the two of them said, Shui Zhijing frowned. Although what you said makes sense, even if Yi Tianhua agrees to give us free information for 5 years, what's the use? How can we use these 5 years of free information to deal with them? At this point, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Zhang Chunren to answer him and continued speaking. The most important problem is that even if Yi Tianhua agrees to give us free information for 5 years, if he doesn't send us any information, we can't do anything to him. This is because we don't know how much information the Shadow Alliance has. Even if he gives us one piece of information a month, we won't notice how much information they haven't told us. More importantly, if he gives us fake information, wouldn't it be even more useless? Therefore, I feel that the free information you mentioned is meaningless. It's impossible to restrain Tianhua. After hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, you're wrong. As long as Tianhua agrees to our free conditions, he won't dare to give us fake information. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Shui Zhizheng to answer him and continued speaking. Hall Master Shui, as long as Tianhua agrees to our conditions, we won't use the information from the South County Shadow Alliance, whether it's real or fake. Because just like you said, maybe the information is fake and deceiving us. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhizheng was stunned for a moment and asked in confusion, Zhang Chunren, since we know that the information they sent might be fake, why do we still want this fake information? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Because we won't use this information ourselves. We will use the name of the South County Shadow Alliance to sell this information to people who need it. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and snorted coldly before continuing. If the information given to us by the South County Shadow Alliance is fake, then the people we sold the information to will definitely not let the South County Shadow Alliance off. They will definitely come to settle the score with them. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing also smiled and said, Hall Master Shui, Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. If there are 3 or 5 of such information, I'm afraid the South County Shadow Alliance will be very busy. At that time, even if they want to deal with us, I'm afraid they won't have a chance. Zhang Chunren smiled and nodded. Yes, this is the result we want. Once the South County Shadow Alliance sends us too much fake information, then there will be more people who will come to settle the score with them. At that time, I'm afraid that we won't even have to do anything. The South County Shadow Alliance will be killed by these people. At that time, it will be a big problem for Tianhua to protect himself, let alone have the time to settle the score with us. Hall Master Shui, so as long as Tianhua agrees to our conditions, we will be in an invincible position. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhizheng frowned. Vice Hall Master Zhang, what you said just now is the result of the South County Shadow Alliance sending us fake information. At this point, Shui Zhizheng paused for a moment before continuing, but if the South County Shadow Alliance didn't send us fake information and their information is true, then what should we do? Hearing Shui Zhizheng's words, before Zhang Chunren could speak, Yuan Weiqing sneered and said, If the South County Shadow Alliance didn't send us fake information, then it's even better. We can sell this information in exchange for the gold coins we need. On the other hand, since they didn't send us fake information. Chapter 692. Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. Hall Master Shui, even if Tianhua didn't give us false information, as long as we are willing, we can use the free information he gave us to defeat the South County Shadow Alliance. At that time, the Shadow Alliance will belong to our South County Tanlei sect. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhizheng immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He never expected that Zhang Chunren's conditions would have so many variations. It could even be said that once Tianhua agreed to these conditions, they could almost defeat the South County Shadow Alliance with these conditions. Thinking of this, a thought suddenly appeared in Shui Zhizheng's mind. Could it be that Tianhua did not agree because he saw through this problem? If that was the case, Tianhua would definitely not agree to the conditions proposed by his side. This was not a simple condition. It might be the reason for destroying the South County Shadow Alliance. Seeing that Shui Zhizheng did not speak, Yuan Weiqing quickly continued, Hall Master Shui, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We must not let Tianhua go. Otherwise, we will definitely regret it. Shui Zhijing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I feel more and more that Yi Tianhua will not agree to our conditions. Once he agrees to our conditions, the South County Shadow Alliance will be in danger. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sighed. Hall Master Shui, why don't you understand now? Yi Tianhua is not a good person. He has been scheming to deal with our South County Tanlei sect. Can't you see this? At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Shui Zhijing to answer, he snorted coldly and continued, Hall Master Shui, you have to think carefully. Hall Master Shui, you have to think this through. If we don't attack Yi Tianhua now, he will turn around and attack us first. At that time, we won't have the chance to regret. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing frowned. Yuan Weiqing, if Yi Tianhua doesn't have any ill intentions towards us, then wouldn't it be against our morals to do this? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Hall Master Shui, this is nothing. We are only doing this to prevent Yi Tianhua from attacking us. If Yi Tianhua doesn't have any ill intentions towards us, we won't do anything to him. But if he does, we won't show any mercy. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, Shui Zhijing frowned. Yuan Weiqing, if Yi Tianhua has ill intentions towards us, even if he agrees to our conditions now, when he returns, he will immediately find an opportunity to frame us. At that time, even if we know that he has ill intentions towards us, won't it be too late? Yuan Weiqing nodded. Hall Master Shui, you don't have to worry about this. If we make a move first and use the 5 years of free information to deal with the South County Shadow Alliance, even if Yi Tianhua wants to deal with us, it will be too late. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused and snorted coldly before continuing. I think that as long as we make the first move, Yi Tianhua won't have the chance to make a move on us. Because I'm afraid that we've already set a trap for him, and he's in a terrible fix. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing was shocked and asked in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, do you want to make a move on them first? Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, if they don't make a move on us, how can we make a move on them? Don't you think so? Shui Zhijing frowned. But you clearly said that you want to make a move on them first. Did I hear wrongly? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment and then shook his head. Hall Master Shui, you heard wrongly. I mean, if Yi Tianhua wants to make a move on us, then we naturally don't have to show mercy. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing nodded and said in a deep voice, if Yi Tianhua really wants to harm us, then we naturally don't have to show mercy. At this point, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment before continuing. However, we can't be sure what Yi Tianhua is thinking now, so we can't make a move first. Otherwise, it won't be good if it really causes a fight between the two sections. Yuan Weiqing nodded. Hall Master Shui, don't worry. We won't make a move on Yi Tianhua for no reason. We won't make a move unless he makes a move first. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Shui Zhijing to reply, he continued. Hall Master Shui, the most important thing now is to get Yi Tianhua to agree to our conditions. Only then can we ensure the safety of the secret Thunder sect of the South County. Don't you think so? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, if we can think of using 5 years of free information to deal with the South County Alliance, I believe that Yi Tianhua can think of it too, so I don't think he'll agree to our conditions. Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, it's precisely because Yi Tianhua won't agree to our conditions that we have to capture him and force him to agree to our conditions. Hearing this, Shui Zhijing turned to look at Yi Tianhua in the distance and suddenly said loudly, Yi Tianhua, I think you'd better agree to our conditions. Otherwise, if we really make a move, it won't be good for either of us. After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and shook his head. Hall Master Shui, I don't know what's going on. How can I agree to something I don't know? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Shui Zhijing to reply, he continued. Hall Master Shui, I think you'd better let me go back first and investigate this matter clearly. Then, I'll give you an answer. What do you think? In the past, when he heard Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhijing didn't feel anything. However, after hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Shui Zhijing suddenly felt that Yi Tianhua's words were a little harsh. Yi Tianhua kept saying that he wanted to leave, but he didn't. What was the reason? Was it really like what Yuan Weiqing had said? Did he want to take advantage of the fact that they were obstructing him to weaken their strength? Shui Zhijing turned to look at Yuan Weiqing, who was seriously injured, and then at LV Hushan, who was slightly injured. He became even more suspicious. If Yuan Weiqing's guess was true, then Yi Tianhua definitely had ulterior motives. He wanted to weaken the strength of his side and then take down all of them. At that time, the dense thunder sect of the South County would be finished. Thinking of this, Shui Zhijing couldn't help but frown. He turned to look at Yi Tianhua and shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, if I let you go, what will you do? After hearing Shui Zhijing's words, Yi Tianhua was stunned. After a long while, he slowly said, If Hall Master Shui is willing to let me go, then I'll be very grateful. After I go back, I'll immediately investigate this matter. I must investigate this matter clearly and see where the problem is. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Shui Zhijing to answer him, he sighed and continued. Hall Master Shui, this matter is really too strange. Someone must have done it on purpose. I think that someone must want our South County Shadow Alliance to fight with your secret Thunder Sect, and then he can take advantage of it. Hall Master Shui, I must find this person and give you a satisfactory answer. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted, No, I definitely won't agree. Yi Tianhua, as long as you don't agree to my conditions, don't even think about going anywhere. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua turned to look at Shui Zhijing with a bitter smile. Hall Master Shui, you must believe me on this matter. Otherwise, if the bad guy succeeds, it will be terrible. Humph! Yuan Weiqing immediately let out a cold snort. Yi Tianhua, I think this bad guy should be you. You're in a hurry to leave. Do you want to go back and arrange a plan to frame our secret Thunder Sect as soon as possible? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua frowned and said in a deep voice, Yuan Weiqing, why would I have such thoughts? Why would I frame your secret Thunder Sect? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Yuan Weiqing, everyone is doing a fair trade. I sell you information, you pay for it. If you're not willing to pay for it, then you naturally won't get the information. Do you think I have a good way to frame you? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted, Yi Tianhua, isn't the matter of Qingling Mountain your method? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him. Yi Tianhua, the news of the fire-rising stone on Qingling Mountain is true. I won't deny this. However, you deliberately hid the news of the snow leopard on Qingling Mountain and said that you didn't know. You used this half-true and half-false news to harm my son, Zhang Huixing, 2 senior craftsmen of the secret Thunder Sect, and more than a dozen craftsmen apprentices. Yi Tianhua, you used the matter on Qingling Mountain to frame so many of us. Do you still dare to say that your news won't harm others? Yi Tianhua shook his head when he heard this. Zhang Chunren, what happened on Qingling Mountain was really a misunderstanding. I don't know what exactly happened. I'm deeply sorry that you lost so many people. It's because of this that I want to investigate what went wrong. I hope that Vice Hall Master Zhang can cooperate and let me leave here first to investigate this matter. I believe that with both of us working together, we will definitely be able to find the cause of this matter. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly shouted, Tianhua, what's there to investigate? You were the one who did this, so what's there to investigate? I think you want to leave because you want to set up a second Qingling Mountain incident to frame even more of us. Tianhua couldn't help but frown when he heard Yuan Weiqing's words. He said somewhat unhappily, Yuan Weiqing, you keep saying that I want to go back and frame you. Then tell me, what evidence do you have to prove that I was the one who did the Qingling Mountain incident? Yuan Weiqing sighed when he heard this. Tianhua, how could someone as cunning as you leave any evidence behind? As long as you don't admit to this matter, we won't be able to find any evidence. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment at this point, but he didn't wait for Tianhua to reply before continuing. However, even though we can't find any evidence, we can deduce from various clues that this matter was definitely done by you. That's because you can benefit the most from it. Also, only you can do this without arousing suspicion. Tianhua, if you're still a man, just admit to it. I guarantee that even if you admit to it, as long as you agree to our conditions, we won't pursue the matter. Zhang Chunren gritted his teeth. Tianhua, as long as you agree to our conditions, we'll let bygones be bygones. Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, Tianhua, don't worry. I'm a man of my word. I won't go back on my word. After hearing their words, Tianhua was stunned for a moment. A hint of hesitation flashed across his eyes. Shui Zhijing saw this and hurriedly said loudly, Tianhua, as long as you agree to our conditions, we'll let bygones be bygones. We won't find trouble with you anymore. After hearing their words, Tianhua became even more hesitant. Things had already come to this point. He could already tell that if he didn't agree to their conditions, it would be impossible for him to return safely today. Also, An Hongda and Du Wudai had been injured by them. It was simply impossible to bring them back. If he was alone here, Tianhua believed that it wouldn't be difficult for him to leave this place with his martial arts. Although the other party had the Thunderbolt Pill from the South Region's Tanlei sect, Tianhua didn't believe that it could stop him from leaving with just the Thunderbolt Pill. Furthermore, Tianhua had already seen the power of the Thunderbolt Pill. If it was only that kind of power, Tianhua believed that the people in front of him wouldn't be able to stop him. However, with An Hongda and Du Wudai, Tianhua wasn't confident that he could escape safely from Zhang Chunren's Thunderbolt Pill. It was also because of this reason that Tianhua wasn't in a hurry to leave. If he left, he was afraid that Zhang Chunren and the others would harm An Hongda and Du Wudai. An Hongda and Du Wudai were his brothers. He would never abandon the two of them and leave this place alone. Furthermore, the main reason why An Hongda and Du Wudai had come here was to help him. If he didn't care about them, then how could Tianhua face the two of them again? Therefore, Tianhua decided that even if he had to leave, he had to bring An Hongda and Du Wudai with him. Chapter 693. Tianhua had already thought it through. Even if he couldn't take An Hongda and Du Wudai away, he would think of a way to settle them down. Only when the two of them were safe would Tianhua leave with peace of mind. It was precisely because of this reason that Tianhua kept discussing with everyone to leave this place. However, Zhang Chunren had never agreed, so they were still discussing. Tianhua turned his head to look at An Hongda and Du Wubao in the distance. In his heart, he wondered if Zhang Chunren would act against the two of them if he left. If the two of them were to be hung here because of this matter, then Tianhua would regret it for the rest of his life. Thinking of this, Tianhua sighed and said slowly, Zhang Chunren, this matter is very strange. I don't know about the snow leopard on Qingling Mountain, but your son, Zhang Huosheng, was hung on Qingling Mountain. Don't you think it strange? Zhang Chunren, if there's another reason for this matter, won't you make the person who's playing dirty even happier by doing this? Zhang Chunren, I'm going back now to investigate this matter and reveal the truth. Do you think it's wrong to do this? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhijing was stunned. Just as he was about to speak, Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, don't quibble there. I think you're the only person in the South County Shadow Alliance who can do such a thing. Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer his question, he snorted coldly and continued. I believe that in the South County Shadow Alliance, not everyone who can do such a thing can do this. Now that things have come to this, Yi Tianhua, what else do you have to quibble about? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua was stunned for a moment and sighed in his heart. He had to admit that Zhang Chunren was right. Although the South County Shadow Alliance was very big, it was not a simple matter to sell a piece of information. Everyone's information would need to be verified by someone to verify the truth of the matter and whether there was any error in the information. For example, the existence of flaming crystal on Green Tower Mountain. Whether or not there was flaming crystal on Green Tower Mountain, or if the location of the flaming crystal was different from what was reported, would all be investigated. It was impossible for something to be investigated only once. Since the same thing had been investigated twice, the only way to falsify it was for these two groups of people to work together. Furthermore, the first group of people might have been lucky enough to discover the flaming soaring rock, but not the snow leopard. However, it was impossible for the second group of people to be so lucky as to not be discovered by the snow leopard. It was also because of this that Yi Tianhua refused to believe that he was the one at fault. What's more, whoever sent the message and who was in charge of the second investigation would be recorded. If there were any problems, these two groups of people would definitely be held accountable. It could be said that there was no need for Yi Tianhua to make things complicated when he returned. He only needed to check the records and he would immediately know who was investigating the incident on Green Tower Mountain. As long as he knew who was investigating the incident on Green Tower Mountain, he would naturally be able to find him and ask if the matter was true or false. At that time, it would be obvious what the problem was. There were two groups of people investigating the incident on Green Tower Mountain, and there were also two groups of people selling the information. One group of people was in charge of selling the information, while the other group was in charge of checking and registering the information. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for a group of people to falsify the information. The South County Shadow Alliance mainly relied on selling information, so they naturally had a complete system to prevent fake information from appearing. It could be said that after so many years, the system of the South County Shadow Alliance had almost eliminated the possibility of falsification. Unless all four groups of people falsified the information, only then could they sell fake information. However, if all four groups of people falsified the information to buy fake information, the price they had to pay was too high. Even if they obtained a certain amount of profit, it would probably not be enough for the four groups of people to share. It was precisely because of this reason that the South County Shadow Alliance had never produced fake information for so many years. Even if Yi Tianhua wanted to sell a fake piece of information, it was impossible for him to sell a piece of recorded information. Unless he fabricated a piece of information himself and sold it, then he would naturally be able to sell a piece of fake information. Just like the incident on Green Tower Mountain this time, if Yi Tianhua sold the information, then there would be no need for a second group of people to investigate. It was precisely because of this reason that in the South County Shadow Alliance, the person who was most likely to sell fake information was Yi Tianhua. As for other people, it was impossible for them to sell fake information alone under such a strict system. Seeing that Yi Tianhua did not answer his question, Zhang Chunren sneered. Yi Tianhua, did I guess correctly? You were the one who sold this fake information to me, right? Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Yi Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Zhang Chunren, although I might sell fake information, once outsiders find out, how can our Shadow Alliance do business in the future? Would I sell something that would destroy the South County Shadow Alliance just because of a small piece of information? At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to answer him, he snorted coldly and continued. Zhang Chunren, that's impossible. How many gold coins can a piece of information be sold for? Compared to the reputation of the South County Shadow Alliance, the gold coins sold for a piece of information is negligible. It's not worth it for me to do this. Zhang Chunren, if I really do this and outsiders find out, do you know what the consequences will be? At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Zhang Chunren, the South County Shadow Alliance mainly relies on selling information. Once fake information appears, I'm afraid it will cause irreparable losses. At best, it will damage the reputation of the South County Shadow Alliance. At worst, it will be difficult for the Shadow Alliance to do business in the future. As the boss of the South County Shadow Alliance, Zhang Chunren, do you think I would do that? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, you're right. If your South County Shadow Alliance sells fake information, it will indeed be difficult for you to do business in the future. Perhaps your Shadow Alliance will change its profession. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Tianhua to answer him, he snorted coldly and continued. However, if you don't admit it after selling fake information, then who will know that your South County Shadow Alliance is selling fake information? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, "That's right, Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. If you sell fake information and no one knows, you naturally won't be responsible." At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, and he suddenly sneered before continuing. Moreover, Tianhua, the real purpose of you selling this fake news isn't here. You must have another purpose. Tianhua shook his head. What purpose can I have? Isn't it normal for your South County Secret Thunder sect to buy information from our South County Shadow Alliance? What other purpose can I have? Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. Tianhua, your real purpose is to use this fake information to exhaust the strength of our South County Secret Thunder sect. Am I right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua was furious and shouted sternly, Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense without evidence. Don't cause misunderstandings. Yuan Weiqing sneered. Tianhua, you still want evidence? Then let me ask you, if we didn't look for you about the matter of Greenling Mountain, would you have pretended not to know? Tianhua frowned. Yuan Weiqing, I really don't know. Why would I pretend not to know? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. After so many years, the South County Shadow Alliance has reached a very strict state in terms of system. It's almost impossible for anyone to sell fake information unless several groups of people work together to sell fake information. However, how much gold coins can a piece of information be worth? How can it be divided among these groups of people? Therefore, it's basically impossible for the people of the South County Shadow Alliance to sell fake information. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused, but then, without waiting for Tianhua to answer his question, he snorted coldly and continued. In the South County Shadow Alliance, there's only one person who can easily sell fake information, and that person is you, Tianhua. Tianhua, am I right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren hurriedly said loudly, Yuan Weiqing, you're right. In the South County Shadow Alliance, the only person who can sell fake information is Tianhua. It's almost impossible for anyone else to sell fake information. Tianhua, at this point, are you still unwilling to admit that you did this? Hearing their words, Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Zhang Chunren, I admit that what you said makes sense, but I can guarantee that I definitely didn't do this. There must be another reason. That's why I hope that you can let me go and investigate this matter clearly. Only then can I give you a satisfactory answer." After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing immediately said loudly, "No, we definitely can't rely on you to leave. This matter must have something to do with you. If we let you go and you harm our South County Secret Thunder Sect, what should we do?" At this point, the Secret Thunder Sect paused for a moment before continuing, "Unless you can agree to our conditions, we will only let you go. Otherwise, it's absolutely impossible." Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. "Yi Tianhua, let me ask you. Even if you return to the South County Shadow Alliance, how can you investigate?" Hearing Zhang Chunren's question, Yi Tianhua frowned and said in a deep voice, "Of course, I'll first find out who went to Qingling Mountain to investigate this matter. Then, I'll find the investigator and ask the reason for this matter. Then, through his answer, I'll find out the truth of the problem." Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. "Yi Tianhua, do you think it's useful for you to go back and investigate like this?" Yi Tianhua looked at Zhang Chunren with some confusion. "Why is it useless? By doing this, I can at least know if our people found the snow leopard when they went to Qingling Mountain. If they did, why didn't they report it? If they didn't, at this point, Yi Tianhua didn't continue. This was because if his people didn't find the snow leopard, then the problem must be with the Secret Thunder Sect of the South County. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. "Yi Tianhua, don't lie to us. Even if you go back and ask, they will only tell you that they didn't find the snow leopard in Qingling Mountain. At that time, do you really think that the problem is with the Secret Thunder Sect of the South County?" After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua frowned. "Zhang Chunren, since this matter isn't with the South County Shadow Alliance, then it's naturally with the Secret Thunder Sect of the South County. Is there anything wrong with that?" Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, before Zhang Chunren could speak, Yuan Weiqing had already shouted, "Yi Tianhua, you're talking nonsense. Do you think that Vice Hall Master Zhang's son, Zhang Huoxing, was harmed by Vice Hall Master Zhang?" At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him, he snorted coldly and continued, "Yi Tianhua, just because of a piece of news from you, our Vice Hall Master Zhang lost his master. Do you think that Vice Hall Master Zhang would do that? Moreover, we didn't only lose Vice Hall Master Zhang's son, Zhang Huoxing, but also 2 advanced craftsmen of our Secret Thunder Sect. Yi Tianhua, do you know how difficult it is to find an advanced craftsman? Do you know what an advanced craftsman means to our Secret Thunder Sect? On Qingling Mountain, we lost 2 advanced craftsmen at once. Do you know how big a blow this is to our Secret Thunder Sect?" After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, why do you think that Yi Tianhua doesn't know?" At this point, Zhang Chunren's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him, he snorted coldly and continued, "Yuan Weiqing, have you forgotten that this is a trap set up by Yi Tianhua? His goal is probably these 2 advanced craftsmen of the Secret Thunder Sect of the South County. Only by eliminating the advanced craftsmen of the Secret Thunder Sect of the South County can the strength of the Secret Thunder Sect of the South County be exhausted to the greatest extent. Only in this way can Yi Tianhua's goal be achieved." Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua was furious. "Zhang Chunren, you're talking nonsense. What does this matter have to do with me? I don't know anything, and you won't let me go back to investigate. What do you want me to do?" Chapter 694. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered, "Yi Tianhua, if we let you go, we'll never be able to find you." At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him, he snorted coldly and continued to speak. Tianhua, you wish, but unfortunately, if you don't agree to our conditions today, I will definitely not let you go. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua suddenly let out a cold laugh. Zhang Chunren, do you think that you can stop me with just the few of you? Hearing this, Zhang Chunren immediately took out the thunderbolt pill and shouted sternly, Tianhua, you can try. Let's see if we can stop you with just the few of us. Seeing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly took out the thunderbolt pill and shouted, Tianhua, if you dare to leave, don't blame us for being impolite. Xue Zhizheng saw that everyone was about to fight again. He quickly turned his head to look at Tianhua and asked loudly, Tianhua, why don't you agree to our conditions? Do you really want to deal with our South County's secret thunder sect? Hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Tianhua frowned. Hall Master Xue, I've already said that I can't give you an answer before I investigate this matter clearly. At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Xue, I can assure you that the reason I left is definitely not to slip away. I really want to investigate this matter, and see what the problem is so that I can give you an answer. As soon as Tianhua finished speaking, before Xue Zhizheng could answer, Zhang Chunren spoke first. Tianhua, don't quibble. If you really want to solve this matter, you will definitely agree to our conditions. Now that you don't even agree to our conditions, it means that you don't want to agree to our conditions. You just want to slip away and secretly deal with our South County's Tanlei sect. Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, the reason why I can't agree to your conditions is because I want to go back and investigate this matter to see where the problem lies. But on the other hand, your conditions are too high. I can't agree to your conditions. Tianhua paused for a moment. Then, without waiting for Zhang Chunren to reply, he laughed bitterly and continued to speak. Zhang Chunren, you want 1 million gold coins and 5 years of free information. Yuan Weiqing wants 2 million gold coins, so the two of you add up to 3 million gold coins, and 5 years of free information. So many gold coins and 5 years of free information. Even if I want to promise you, where am I going to find so many gold coins? At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Zhang Chunren, if your conditions weren't so harsh, I think I would have agreed on the account of our two sections. However, your conditions are too harsh. Even if I were to go bankrupt, I wouldn't be able to do this. After hearing Tianhua's words, Xue Zhizheng sighed in his heart. He knew very well that Tianhua was right. If Tianhua agreed to Zhang Chunren's conditions, he would probably take out all his wealth, but it would definitely not be enough. The reason why Xue Zhizheng was hesitant was because he knew very well that he understood Tianhua's difficulties. If it were him, he would definitely not agree. However, after hearing Zhang Chunren and Yuan Weiqing's words, Xue Zhizheng felt that he had to make Tianhua agree. Otherwise, if Tianhua really had ill intentions towards the South County's Tanlei sect, it would be too late to regret it. Just as Xue Zhizheng was sighing, Zhang Chunren sneered and said, Tianhua, who would believe your words? It's only 3 million gold coins. Even if you can't take it out, can't you borrow it? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Tianhua to answer him. Tianhua, if you agree to borrow it, I can give you a chance. As long as you write a written agreement, then we'll go with you. When you give us all the gold coins in the future, we'll naturally let you go. Tianhua, what do you think? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua was stunned for a moment. When he reacted, he immediately frowned. After a while, he slowly said, Zhang Chunren, do you think that even if I borrow it, it's possible for me to borrow 3 million gold coins? Zhang Chunren nodded. Definitely. With your status, it's definitely not a problem for you to borrow 3 million gold coins. If you agree, we'll write a written agreement now. What do you think? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua hesitated for a moment before shaking his head and saying with a bitter smile, Zhang Chunren, I can't borrow it. Even if I borrow it, it's impossible for me to borrow 3 million gold coins. It's too much. If I really borrow so much gold coins, how can I pay it back? Do I have to pay it back for the rest of my life? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly shouted, Yi Tianhua, if you don't want to, then why did you cut off my arm? Why did you use fake news to harm Vice Hall Master Zhang's son, the 2 senior craftsmen of the secret Thunder sect in the South region, and the dozen apprentices? Yi Tianhua, you're in trouble now. Have you ever thought about how difficult it is for them? If possible, we'd rather not take your 3 million gold coins than let this happen. Yi Tianhua, if you can make this happen again, then you naturally don't have to agree to our conditions. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua bitterly smiled and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, how is that possible? No one can make this happen again. I know you're all in pain, but I don't want this to happen either. Yuan Weiqing, our South Region Shadow Alliance's information is very strict. It can be said that from the source of the information to the sale of the information, all the steps are sold and checked. There's basically no possibility of a mistake. Speaking of this, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. However, under such strict conditions, there's still a mistake. Yuan Weiqing, I need to investigate carefully to see where the problem is. I must find the truth of the matter. I can't let this matter be hidden. Yuan Weiqing, the reason why I went back to investigate is to give you a satisfactory answer. I hope you can understand my difficulties. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. After he reacted, he suddenly sneered. Yi Tianhua, you said that this matter is very strange and you need to investigate before you can give me an answer. I understand you. However, I want to ask, is the injury on my arm very strange to you? Is it also very complicated? Do I need you to go back and investigate? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer his question, he snorted coldly and continued speaking. Yi Tianhua, don't lie to us. You clearly don't want to agree to our conditions and want to take the opportunity to slip away, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua's expression suddenly changed and he frowned. Yuan Weiqing, don't worry. I won't take the opportunity to slip away. When I investigate this matter, I'll definitely give you an answer. Just as Yi Tianhua finished speaking, Zhang Chunren shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, if you really want to go back and investigate this matter, why don't you agree to Yuan Weiqing's conditions? Do you also need to go back and investigate the injury on his arm? After hearing the two's words, Yi Tianhua knew that he couldn't avoid it. He could only sigh and turn to look at Yuan Weiqing, saying slowly, Yuan Weiqing, regarding the injury on your arm, I don't want to take responsibility because you were the one who attacked me first. No matter what your reason was, you were the one who attacked me first. I had no choice but to retaliate. It's just that I used too much force and injured you. Yuan Weiqing, don't blame me for this. If you didn't attack me, I wouldn't have been able to hurt you. So, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for trying to attack me and injuring yourself. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was instantly enraged. He said sternly, Yi Tianhua, I already said that I only wanted to capture you. I didn't really want to hurt you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have attacked you when I knew that your martial arts were higher than mine. Yi Tianhua, this wasn't a sneak attack. We were fighting. How can my attack be considered a sneak attack? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua sighed. Yuan Weiqing, since you admit that we were fighting, then since it was a fight, I shouldn't be responsible for the injury on your arm, right? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was instantly enraged. He shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, don't tell me that you want to leave without doing anything after injuring me? Let me tell you, you're dreaming. I definitely won't agree to it. Yi Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this isn't a matter of whether you agree or not. This is the truth. Even if you don't agree, this is still the truth. Unless you can change the truth, I will only agree to it. At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't blame you for using the Thunderbolt pill to ambush me, but you ambushed me and got injured by me instead. Now you want me to compensate you? Don't you think that's ridiculous? Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said angrily, Tianhua, if you had agreed to our Deputy Hall Leader Zhang's conditions, this wouldn't have happened. There wouldn't have been a fight between us. I'm afraid that we would have left by now. Speaking up to this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing. In the end, it's all your fault. Tianhua, if you hadn't agreed to Deputy Hall Leader Zhang's conditions, we wouldn't have fought and we wouldn't have used the Thunderbolt pill to attack you. Tianhua, this is all your fault. It's because of you that my arm was cut off. You have to compensate me. Otherwise, I definitely won't agree to it. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I still stand by what I said just now. If you hadn't attacked me, you wouldn't have been injured. Therefore, I won't take responsibility for this. Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered. Tianhua, if you hadn't agreed to our conditions, do you think that you would have been able to leave today? Hearing this, Tianhua looked up to the sky and laughed. Yuan Weiqing, you're no match for me. Do you really think that you can stop me with just the few of you? Speaking up to this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing without waiting for Yuan Weiqing's reply. I'm not boasting, but in the South County, there are only a few people who can stop me. But Tianhua turned his head and looked coldly at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered and said, But you're definitely not among those who can stop me. Although Tianhua's tone was cold, Yuan Weiqing wasn't afraid at all. He shouted sternly, Tianhua, do you think that you can do whatever you want just because you're good at martial arts? Speaking up to this point, Yuan Weiqing paused and snorted coldly before continuing, Tianhua, I'm telling you, that's impossible. You won't be able to escape from our joint attack. Moreover, we have the Thunderbolt pill. Tianhua, do you really think that you can escape from our thunderclap balls? Hearing this, Tianhua glanced at the Thunderbolt pill in Yuan Weiqing's hand and said flatly, Yuan Weiqing, I admit that your Thunderbolt pill is powerful, but I wasn't prepared for it earlier. Now that I'm prepared, do you think that you can hurt me that easily? After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment before laughing out loud. Tianhua, don't boast. Under the attack of our Thunderbolt pills, no one can escape. No matter how high your martial arts are, you will never be able to escape from our attack. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua let out a long breath and said indifferently, Yuan Weiqing, do you want to try and see if I can escape? Yuan Weiqing smiled coldly and nodded. That's right, Tianhua. I really want to try and see if you can escape from our Thunderbolt pill. Hearing this, Tianhua nodded and slowly raised the long sword in his hand. He said flatly, Yuan Weiqing, since you want to try, I'll make an exception today and show you the true meaning of swordsmanship. Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He thought to himself, could it be that Tianhua didn't use his full strength in the battle just now? If that was the case, then Tianhua's martial arts were too terrifying. Thinking up to this point, Yuan Weiqing felt weak for the first time. Just as Yuan Weiqing was hesitating, Zhang Chunren suddenly shouted, Tianhua, don't be so arrogant. I admit that your martial arts are powerful, and we might not be your match. Even if we have the Thunderbolt pill, we might not be able to keep you here, but… Chapter 695. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua paused for a moment before laughing coldly. Zhang Chunren, do you have any more powerful firearms? Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Zhang Chunren to reply. He scoffed and continued without waiting for Zhang Chuanren's reply. Zhang Chunren, even if you have more powerful firearms, I'm afraid you won't be able to hurt me. Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Yi Tianhua, let me tell you, even if we don't use firearms, you won't dare to leave. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and turned his head to the side before continuing. Yi Tianhua, don't forget that An Hongdao and Du Wudai are still here. If you leave now, don't tell me you're going to ignore them? Hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Yuan Weiqing was overjoyed and laughed coldly. That's right, Yi Tianhua. If you dare to leave, don't blame us for not going easy on An Hongda and Du Wudai. Hearing their words, Yi Tianhua was shocked and asked with a trembling voice, Zhang Chunren, this has nothing to do with them. I hope you can let them go. Zhang Chunren laughed coldly and shook his head. Impossible. Unless you agree to our conditions, I won't let them go. Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but before Yi Tianhua could reply, he snorted coldly and continued speaking. Yi Tianhua, unless you can take them away, you better agree to our conditions. Otherwise, even if you run, An Hongda and Du Wudai won't be able to escape from our hands. Yuan Weiqing laughed loudly. Yi Tianhua, if you know what's good for you, you'd better agree to our conditions. Otherwise, I'll make a move on them right now. When that happens, don't blame me for being cruel, haha. Hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Yi Tianhua clenched his teeth. He was reluctant to leave because he was worried about An Hongdao and Du Wudai. He was afraid that Zhang Chunren and the others would harm them. Thinking of this, Yi Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, why do you have to do this? I didn't say that I wouldn't agree to your conditions. Why do you have to do this? At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Zhang Chunren, I will definitely solve your problem for you, but you have to give me some time. Let me go back to investigate and find out what the problem is. That way, I can give you a satisfactory answer. But if you don't let me go, how can I find out the truth of the matter? Zhang Chunren, our sects have no grudges against each other. There's no need to make this situation worse. If you let me go, I promise to give you a satisfactory answer. What do you think? Zhang Chunren laughed and shook his head. No, unless you agree to my conditions. Or else, I won't let you go. Yuan Weiqing shouted from the side. Yes, and me. If you don't agree to my conditions, we won't let you go either. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua sighed and turned to look at Yuan Weiqing. He said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, you were the one who attacked me first. I didn't expect you to be injured because of this. You actually want me to compensate you. Yuan Weiqing, aren't you being a little too whimsical? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. Yi Tianhua, don't be so arrogant. I'm not arguing with you right now. I want you to agree to my terms. It doesn't matter if I ambushed you or not, you have to agree to my terms. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Yi Tianhua to answer him and continued to speak. Yi Tianhua, An Hongda and Du Wudai are now in our hands. If you don't agree, don't blame us for attacking them. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua laughed bitterly. Yuan Weiqing, why do you have to do this? You were clearly in the wrong first. Why do you always want me to compensate you? If we're like you, we only have to go out and fight the enemy. Once the enemy is injured, we have to compensate. How are we going to fight the enemy in the future? When Zhang Chunren heard this, he was instantly enraged and yelled, Yi Tianhua, what do you mean? How did Yuan Weiqing get injured? Is he the kind of person you're talking about? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Yi Tianhua's reply and continued to speak. Yi Tianhua, the reason why Yuan Weiqing is injured is mainly because of you. If you agreed to my conditions earlier, Yuan Weiqing wouldn't have been injured. In the end, this is all your fault. Now that Yuan Weiqing is so seriously injured, if he doesn't look for you, who else can he look for? After hearing Zhang Chuanren's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head. Zhang Chunren, you're wrong. At that time, I was already battered and exhausted, but Yuan Weiqing still launched a sneak attack on me. He definitely didn't want to restrain me, he wanted to injure me. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. If Yuan Weiqing's sneak attack was successful, then the person who was injured now would be me. Perhaps my injuries are even more serious than Yuan Weiqing's. If that happened, Zhang Chunren, would you say the same thing? Zhang Chunren nodded and said with a cold smile, Yi Tianhua, the cause of this matter is your South County Shadow Alliance. If it wasn't for your South County Shadow Alliance selling fake information, this wouldn't have happened. My son wouldn't have been killed by the snow leopard. Also, the 2 senior craftsmen of our South County Secret Thunder sect and the dozen or so apprentices wouldn't have been killed because of this. Yi Tianhua, it doesn't matter if you sold fake information, but you harmed so many people. Most importantly, you still don't know how to repent and are still desperately trying to quibble. Yi Tianhua, you have to compensate us now. Otherwise, I won't agree. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. As for Yuan Weiqing's problem, do you think that we can just let it go like this? Yi Tianhua, you're dreaming. If it wasn't for the fact that you didn't want to agree to our conditions and wanted to take the opportunity to slip away, Yuan Weiqing wouldn't have attacked you at this time. Yi Tianhua, you have to be responsible for Yuan Weiqing's matter. He didn't mean to hurt you. He just wanted to restrain you. If Yuan Weiqing really wanted to hurt you, as long as he kept throwing thunderbolt pills at you, I believe that no matter how high your martial arts are, you might not be able to escape. Yi Tianhua, don't you understand? Yuan Weiqing didn't want to hurt you with thunderbolt pills. He wanted to restrain you and make you agree to my conditions. But what about you? You took the opportunity to injure Yuan Weiqing so severely. Yi Tianhua, what are you thinking? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua sighed. Zhang Chunren, no matter what you say, Yuan Weiqing was wrong first. I won't take responsibility. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused and pointed at an Hongda and Du Wubao in the distance. He then continued, Zhang Chunren, according to what you said, shouldn't the 2 of them be asking for compensation from you? Because the 2 of them were injured by you. More importantly, they have nothing to do with this matter. You injured them purely by accident. Speaking of which, shouldn't we talk about the issue of compensating them first? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Yi Tianhua, the 2 of them brought this upon themselves. If you agreed to our conditions earlier, everyone wouldn't have to attack. Yi Tianhua, am I right? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment. However, he didn't wait for Yi Tianhua to answer and continued with a sneer. Yi Tianhua, I advise you to quickly agree to our conditions. Otherwise, we won't let you go. Even if you escape this time, do you think you'll be fine? Yi Tianhua, this is impossible. You harmed my son, Zhang Huoxing, and the 2 senior craftsmen of the Secret Thunder sect in the South region. Do you think it's possible for you to just leave like this? Yi Tianhua, let me tell you, is this what you're doing? If you dare to leave here today, I promise you that I won't let any of you from the Shadow Alliance go. I'll kill them all. Yi Tianhua, do you believe me? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua was shocked. He subconsciously glanced at the injured and Hongda and Du Wudai in the distance and was shocked. He could now see that Zhang Chunren might have gone crazy. If he really left here, Zhang Chunren might really do such a thing. Yi Tianhua looked at a few of his own people in the distance. Other than an Hongda and Du Wudai, there were also their 3 disciples who were lying there unconscious. If he left, would the 5 of them be plotted against by Zhang Chunren and the others? Yi Tianhua didn't dare to try his luck because these people in front of him were his brothers and disciples. He didn't want to use these people to try his luck. If they were really unlucky, they would die because of this. If that was the case, Yi Tianhua would regret it for the rest of his life. Moreover, and Hongda and Duwudai were here to help him this time. If he left first and let the two helpers die, once this matter spread, he wouldn't be able to face anyone for the rest of his life. Thinking of this, Yi Tianhua sighed and turned to look at Zhang Chunren. He said slowly, "Zhang Chunren, for so many years, our Shadow Alliance and your secret Thunder Sect have never interfered with each other. We've always done business normally and had normal dealings. No one has offended each other. But what's going on this time? Why did this happen? Why is there a snow leopard on Qingling Mountain? Zhang Chunren, tell me, what's going on? Why did this happen? Our Shadow Alliance has been selling information in the South County for so many years, but there has never been such a problem. Our system of selling information is very strict. It can even be said that it's impossible for fake information to appear. But now it has appeared. Zhang Chunren, can you tell me what's going on?" Hearing Yi Tianhua's question, Zhang Chunren sneered. "Yi Tianhua, you don't have to put on an act. You were the one who planned this, so why are you still putting on an act? Yi Tianhua, we've already seen through your plan. If you're still lying, do you think we're fools?" Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Yi Tianhua's reply and continued to speak. "Yi Tianhua, just as you said, the system of selling information in the South County Shadow Alliance is very strict. It's almost impossible for fake information to appear. It's because of this that I suspect you, Yi Tianhua." At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing, "Because in the entire South County Shadow Alliance, you're the only one who can sell fake information without being controlled by these systems. Yi Tianhua, you're the boss of the South County Shadow Alliance, so naturally, you won't be controlled by these rules. It's probably not easy for others to sell fake information, or even impossible. However, it's too easy for you to sell fake information. It's simply too easy. Yi Tianhua, it's precisely because of this that I suspect you. I suspect that you want to harm our South County Tanlei sect, so you sold us such fake information. You want to destroy the high-level craftsmen of our South County Tanlei sect. Then, after our strength is weakened, you'll make a move on our South County Tanlei sect. Yi Tianhua, am I right? Is this your overall plan?" Yi Tianhua stared blankly at Zhang Chunren. After a long while, he slowly sighed. "Zhang Chunren, I really have nothing to say to you. I really admire you for being able to connect so many things to what happened on Qingling Mountain." Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, "But unfortunately, Zhang Chunren, all of this is your guess. In other words, what you said is all fake. Zhang Chunren, let me tell you, none of the things you said are true. I don't even know what's going on with the snow leopard on Qingling Mountain. How could I use this matter to frame your South County's Tanlei sect? Zhang Chunren is just an accident. It can even be said that our South County Shadow Alliance has nothing to do with this accident. As for the reason behind it, I can only give you a satisfactory answer after I go back and investigate it thoroughly." "That's right. Zhang Chunren, I can only swear to you now that I definitely didn't do this because we have a reason to do this. We have no enmity between us, so why would we do such a ruthless thing? Zhang Chunren, let's talk about it. Let me go back. I'll definitely investigate this matter and see what the reason is. Most importantly, I want to see who has such a ruthless heart to want to harm your son, Zhang Huoxing, the 10 high-level craftsmen of your South County Tanlei sect, and the apprentices." Chapter 696. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. "Yi Tianhua, don't lie to me anymore. I know you want to sneak away. What's your purpose?" Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Yi Tianhua's reply and continued to speak. "Yi Tianhua, if you want to prove that what you just said is true, then you have to agree to my conditions now. When the time comes, I will naturally believe that you are telling the truth. Tianhua, do you dare to agree? Yuan Weiqing also shouted, Tianhua, do you dare to agree? If you dare to agree, then we will naturally believe you. At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment before continuing, Tianhua, if you don't agree, it means that what Vice Hall Master Zhang guessed just now is true. You just want to sneak away and think of a way to assassinate us when you get back. Tianhua, you'd better agree to our conditions quickly. After hearing their words, Tianhua shook his head with a bitter smile. Zhang Chunren, although I really want to agree, your conditions are too harsh. If you only want 500,000 gold coins, then I will gather the money and give it to you. Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Zhang Chunren's reply and continued to speak. But you actually want 3 million gold coins. Zhang Chunren, where am I going to find 3 million gold coins? Aren't you making things difficult for me? After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Tianhua, I'm not making things difficult for you. I've already given you many choices. If you agree to any of them, I can let you go. However, you harmed my son and 2 senior craftsmen of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. You actually want me to let you go without any conditions? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. Impossible, Tianhua. If this happened to you, you wouldn't agree either. Tianhua frowned. Zhang Chunren, if it were me, I wouldn't ask for such harsh conditions. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly sneered. Tianhua, is what you said true? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Tianhua's reply and continued to speak. Tianhua, someone harmed your son on purpose. Do you think you can let them go just because of a simple condition? After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua was stunned for a moment, then shook his head with a bitter smile. If he did it on purpose, of course we can't let him off so easily. But if it was unintentional, then this matter can be discussed. Hearing Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Tianhua, my son was harmed by you. Now you don't want to agree to my condition. Tell me, I admire you. What should I do? Tianhua sighed. Vice Hall Master Zhang, I think the most important thing we should do now is to investigate this matter thoroughly and find out where the problem lies. Only then can we make a judgment. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, when you said you were going back to investigate, I already know that you were lying to me. You want to sneak back and find a chance to deal with us. Once you've dealt with us, you naturally won't have to agree to our conditions. Tianhua, am I right? Tianhua shook his head. No, Zhang Chunren, how could I do such a thing? I'm going back this time to investigate this matter. I definitely won't lie to you. Don't worry, once I investigate this matter thoroughly, I'll naturally give you a satisfactory answer. I won't let you lose out. Zhang Chunren sneered and shook his head. Tianhua, at the end of the day you just want to leave. But let me tell you, you can't leave. Unless you agree to our conditions today, we definitely won't let you leave. Yuan Weiqing shouted from the side. Tianhua, hurry up and agree to our conditions, and we can still let you leave. If you don't agree... After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua was angry. He turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said coldly, Yuan Weiqing, do you think you have the right to say that? Yuan Weiqing, if I want to leave, do you think you can stop me? After hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing's expression changed, but it was only for a moment before it returned to normal. Tianhua, you don't have to scare me. I admit that I definitely can't stop you, but do you think I'm the only one here? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Tianhua to answer him. Tianhua, our Hall Master Shui is also here today. If you want to leave, you're dreaming. I advise you to quickly agree to our Vice Hall Master Zhang's conditions. Otherwise, it'll be too late to regret it. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua turned to look at Xue Zhizheng and sighed. Hall Master Xue, you saw what happened today. It definitely has nothing to do with me, so I hope that you can let me leave and let me go back to investigate this matter. What do you think? Xue Zhizheng shook his head. Yi Tianhua, now that things have come to this, I have nothing to say. At this point, Xue Zhizheng paused for a moment before continuing. Yi Tianhua, I have to admit that Vice Hall Master Zhang is right. If I let you leave like this, if you go back and want to deal with our South County's secret thunder sect, it'll be too late to regret it. So, I think you should agree to our conditions. Hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Yi Tianhua could not help but frown and said in a low voice, Hall Master Xue, you heard their conditions just now. You also heard what I said. Don't you think that their conditions are too harsh? Hall Master Xue, how can I agree to such conditions? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Xue Zhizheng sighed. Yi Tianhua, you can talk to them and lower the conditions, but you absolutely can't not agree to our conditions and leave like this. Yi Tianhua, do you understand what I mean? Hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Yi Tianhua nodded, then turned to look at Zhang Chunren and smiled. Vice Hall Master Zhang, you heard what Hall Master Xue said. Can you lower the conditions a little? Hearing this, Zhang Chunren turned to look at Xue Zhizheng and nodded slowly. Since Hall Master Xue has spoken, then I'll listen to him this time. Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Yi Tianhua's reply and continued to speak. Yi Tianhua, 1 million gold coins and 3 years of free information, what do you think? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua's frown deepened. After a long silence, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. Vice Hall Master Zhang, the conditions are still a little too high. Where can I find 1 million gold coins for you? And 3 years of free information, I still can't agree to that. At this point, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, then continued, Vice Hall Master Zhang, I hope you can lower the conditions a little so that I can agree to your conditions. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren gritted his teeth. Yi Tianhua, are my conditions too high? In the past, it was 500,000 gold coins and 5 years of free information. You don't think that's possible? Now I want more gold coins and less free information, is that not possible? Yi Tianhua shook his head and smiled bitterly. Zhang Chunren, can you only ask for gold coins and not free information? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren sighed. Sure, then 3 million gold coins at a time. As long as you agree, I won't ask for free information. 3 million gold coins? Hearing this number, Yi Tianhua sighed inwardly and said slowly, Vice Hall Master Zhang, don't you think that 3 million gold coins is a little too much? Zhang Chunren shook his head. Yi Tianhua, 3 million gold coins is my limit. If you want to bargain, then it means that you don't want to agree to my conditions. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua smiled bitterly and turned to Xue Zhizheng. Hall Master Xue, don't you think this condition is a little too high? Can I trouble you to ask Vice Hall Master Zhang to lower the conditions a little? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Xue Zhizheng sighed. He turned to Zhang Chunren and asked in a low voice, Zhang Chunren, can you reduce the number of gold coins a bit? After hearing Xue Zhizheng's words, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment before nodding. Sure, Hall Master Xue. Since you've asked, I'll naturally agree. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused and turned to look at Yi Tianhua before continuing. Yi Tianhua, since Hall Master Xue has spoken, then I can lower the price a little. 2,800,000 gold coins. If you agree, then we'll forget about our matter. 2,800,000 gold coins. Hearing this number, Yi Tianhua sighed again. Vice Hall Master Zhang, isn't this still a little too much? Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Zhang Chunren's reply and continued to speak. Vice Hall Master Zhang, how about this? 1 million gold coins. If you agree, I'll immediately agree to your conditions. What do you think? 1,000,000 gold coins. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren suddenly laughed coldly. Yi Tianhua, if you only want to take out 1,000,000 gold coins, that's fine. However, I can only use free information in exchange for the remaining 2,000,000 gold coins. After hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua gritted his teeth. Vice Hall Master Zhang, although your son was killed by the snow leopard in this incident, isn't 1,000,000 gold coins enough? After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly. Yi Tianhua, if I use 1,000,000 gold coins in exchange for your son, will you agree? Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Yi Tianhua's reply and continued to speak. Yi Tianhua, I'll answer for you. You won't. Even if I give you 3,000,000 gold coins, you won't agree. Since you won't agree, Yi Tianhua, what makes you think that 1,000,000 gold coins can be exchanged for my Huoxing? Yuan Weiqing also shouted from the side. Yi Tianhua, even if you give us 3,000,000 gold coins, our Vice Hall Master Zhang won't be willing to lose his son, Huoxing. If it weren't for Hall Master Shui, we wouldn't agree even if you gave us 3,000,000 gold coins. If Hall Master Shui wants to keep the peace, then we'll listen to him. As long as you give us 3,000,000 gold coins, we'll forget about Vice Hall Master Zhang. Yi Tianhua, don't tell me you still don't agree? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua frowned. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that I don't agree, but you're asking for too much. Where do you want me to find so many gold coins for you? After hearing Yi Tianhua's question, Yuan Weiqing suddenly laughed coldly. Yi Tianhua, didn't our Vice Hall Master Zhang already say that you can borrow from others? If you don't have anyone to borrow from, we can help you find someone to borrow from. As long as you agree to my conditions, gold coins won't be a problem. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, if I really borrow these 3,000,000 gold coins, how should I pay it back? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Yi Tianhua, this has nothing to do with us. So what if you hurt our Vice Hall Master Zhang's son? Since you did something wrong, you must be punished. And these 3,000,000 gold coins are your repentance for the wrong thing you did. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Yi Tianhua gritted his teeth. He was furious, but after thinking about it, he sighed and suppressed the anger in his heart. He slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, I've said it many times. I don't know about this matter. I really have nothing to do with it. Whether the information sold to you by the South County Shadow Alliance is fake or not, it has nothing to do with me. I don't know why this happened. Yuan Weiqing, if you want to know the truth, you can only wait until I go back and investigate this matter. Only then will we know what the problem is. Yuan Weiqing, haven't I made it clear enough? This matter has nothing to do with me. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. Yi Tianhua, then tell me. If this matter has nothing to do with you, then who does it have to do with? Does it have to do with us? Yi Tianhua sighed. I don't know what's going on either. Speaking of this, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing. Our South County Shadow Alliance has strict rules when selling information. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be easy to make mistakes. It can even be said that there shouldn't be any mistakes. However, why would such a problem occur? I'm also suspicious. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. Yi Tianhua, are you suspecting our South County Secret Thunder sect? Chapter 697. Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Yi Tianhua to answer him and continued to speak. Yi Tianhua, let me tell you, there's definitely no problem with the Secret Thunder sect of the South County. It must be the problem with the Shadow Alliance of the South County. There's no mistake about this, right? Yi Tianhua shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, the Shadow Alliance of the South County has a strict system. It's almost impossible to sell fake information. Since it's impossible, then tell me, how could there be a problem with the Shadow Alliance of the South County? Yuan Weiqing sneered and pointed at Tianhua. He said loudly, Tianhua, although the Shadow Alliance of the South County has a strict system, the system can't control you. It's easy for you to sell fake information. Tianhua, am I right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua sighed. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, I won't sell fake information. Also, let me tell you, do you think it's that easy for me to sell fake information? Tianhua paused for a moment, but then, he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. The information sold by the South County Alliance is all delivered by special people. No one else can deliver the information. Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Yuan Weiqing, I'm one of them. Do you understand? Even I can't sell information to the outside world. Therefore, the assumption you mentioned doesn't exist, and I can't sell fake information. Hearing Tianhua's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. Just as he was about to speak, Zhang Chunren spoke first. Tianhua, it's because the Shadow Alliance of the South County has a strict system that you're the only one who can sell fake information. Speaking up to this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment before continuing. If other people want to sell information, they need to go through layers of reviews. Only you can easily sell information without any reviews. Tianhua, although the rules say that you can't sell information, if you do, who will know? Even if someone investigates, you can make a fake file to prove your matter. Tianhua, stop saying that it's impossible for you to sell information. If you want to sell information, it's much easier than anyone else. And this fake news about Green Spike Mountain was definitely sold by you. Otherwise, with such a strict system, how could it be possible to sell fake information? Tianhua, everything you said is fake, and you were the one who sold this information. Tianhua, do you still want to argue? Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Tianhua frowned and said in a deep voice, Zhang Chunren, according to what you said, this could also be your doing. Tianhua paused for a moment, but he did not wait for Zhang Chunren's reply and continued to speak. Zhang Chunren, it's too easy for your South County's secret thunder sect to fake this. The information we sold you is indeed true, and there is indeed no snow leopard on Green Spike Mountain. However, you faked this information to deceive me. After hearing Tianhua's words, Zhang Chunren was stunned for a moment before he angrily said, Tianhua, you're talking nonsense. Why would we create fake news? Do you think we're greedy for your 1 million gold coins? Tianhua, stop dreaming. Do you think I'll harm my son for that 1 million gold coins? Tianhua, let me tell you, I only have one son, Huosheng. Even if you give me 3 million gold coins or 10 million gold coins, I won't exchange it for Huosheng, let alone 1 million gold coins. Also, do you know what an advanced craftsman means to our South County's secret thunder sect? Tianhua, you don't understand. We've lost too much this time, but you dare to say that we're faking it? Tianhua, let me tell you, if you don't agree to my conditions, I won't let you leave today. Yuan Weiqing also said loudly, Tianhua, if you don't agree to our conditions today, don't blame us for being impolite. Tianhua turned to look at Shui Zhizheng and said with a bitter smile, Hall Master Shui, I wanted to talk to them nicely, but look at them. Why do they look like they're talking nicely? At this point, Tianhua paused for a moment before continuing, Hall Master Shui, I really don't want our two factions to fight. That's why I've been discussing with you all this time. But if you really don't agree, Hall Master Shui, then I can't do anything. Hearing Tianhua's words, before Shui Zhizheng could speak, Yuan Weiqing had already said, Tianhua, you said that we're not talking nicely. Can you blame us? If you agreed to our conditions, why would we talk nonsense with you? It's all your fault. Why didn't you agree to our conditions? Tianhua sighed. Yuan Weiqing, no matter what, I just want to tell you that I really can't fulfill such a high condition that you've given me. Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhijing frowned and asked loudly, Yi Tianhua, then tell me, what conditions can you agree to? Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Yi Tianhua frowned and hesitated for a moment before speaking slowly. Hall Master Shui, I can't agree to Vice Hall Master Zhang's condition of 3 million gold coins. I don't have that much gold coins. If it's 1 million gold coins, I can gather them and maybe I can satisfy your conditions. After hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhijing sighed inwardly. He turned to Zhang Chunren and asked in a deep voice, Zhang Chunren, did you hear Yi Tianhua's words? How do you feel about 1 million gold coins? Hearing Shui Zhijing's question, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Hall Master Shui, don't you think that 1 million gold coins is too little? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Shui Zhijing's answer. Hall Master Shui, we've lost so much, and Yi Tianhua only wants to give us 1 million gold coins. Do you think that's enough? Speaking of this, Zhang Chunren lowered his voice and continued, Hall Master Shui, did you forget what we just said? The reason why we asked for so many conditions is that on one hand, we want to be compensated, and on the other hand, aren't we buying time for our secret thunder sect? Yi Tianhua has ulterior motives, we have to guard against him. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Shui Zhijing was stunned. Only then did he remember what he said to Zhang Chunren. If what he said was true, then in order to restrain Yi Tianhua, he really had to ask for more. If it was only 1 million gold coins, Yi Tianhua only needed to gather some gold coins. However, if things were really as Zhang Chunren said, wouldn't it be terrible? If he let Yi Tianhua go, there would be endless trouble in the future. Thinking of this, Shui Zhijing hesitated again. Seeing this, Zhang Chunren quickly lowered his voice and said, Hall Master Shui, don't hesitate anymore. We must make Yi Tianhua agree to our conditions. Only by doing this can we buy time for the secret thunder sect in the South County. If we guessed wrong, we naturally won't do anything to Yi Tianhua. But if we guessed right, at least we have a way to deal with it and won't put our secret thunder sect in danger. Hearing this, Shui Zhijing gritted his teeth and nodded. Okay, I'll listen to you on this matter. Hearing Shui Zhijing's answer, Zhang Chunren sneered. He then turned to look at Yi Tianhua and shouted sternly, Yi Tianhua, you'd better agree to our conditions quickly. If you don't blame us for attacking you. Hearing Zhang Chunren's words, Yi Tianhua hurriedly turned to look at Zhang Chunren and asked loudly, Hall Master Shui, what do you think of my conditions? Do you agree? Hearing Yi Tianhua's words, Shui Zhijing shook his head with a bitter smile. Yi Tianhua, our losses this time are too serious. Vice Hall Master Zhang lost his only son, Zhang Huoxing, and our secret thunder sect lost 2 senior craftsmen and more than a dozen apprentices. I'm afraid that 1 million gold coins can't make up for such a serious loss. Speaking of this, Shui Zhijing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yi Tianhua to answer him. Yi Tianhua, I think you'd better agree. Otherwise, we won't be able to talk when we go back. Hearing Shui Zhijing's answer, Yi Tianhua frowned and said loudly, Hall Master Shui, we don't know what the problem is. How can I take out so many gold coins to compensate you? Speaking of this, Yi Tianhua paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Shui Zhijing to answer him. Hall Master Shui, I think it's better for me to go back and investigate. After I investigate this matter, if it really happened on the side of our Shadow Alliance, I promise to give you a satisfactory answer. Hall Master Shui, what do you think? As soon as Yi Tianhua finished speaking, before Shui Zhijing could answer, Zhang Chunren shouted, Yi Tianhua, you don't have to act anymore. We already know what you're thinking. There's no point in continuing to act. I advise you to quickly agree to our conditions. Otherwise, we definitely won't let you go today. Shui Zhijing also sighed. Tianhua, I think you should agree. We have no choice. Hearing this, Tianhua frowned. Hall Master Shui, where do you want me to get so many gold coins for you? Zhang Chunren sneered. Tianhua, this is very simple. You can promise us free information for 5 years. This way, you can only take out 500,000 gold coins. No. As soon as Zhang Chunren finished speaking, Tianhua flatly refused. This definitely won't do. If I give you 5 years of free information, what if you want to harm our Shadow Alliance? Wouldn't we be in trouble? Hearing Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunren sneered again. Tianhua, since you don't agree, then give me 3 million gold coins and this matter can be considered over. Hearing this, Tianhua gritted his teeth and said, Zhang Chunren, where do you want me to find 3 million gold coins for you? Aren't you making things difficult for me? Hearing Tianhua's answer, Zhang Chunren shook his head. Tianhua, I don't want to make things difficult for you. If you have 3 million gold coins, you can borrow them. At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Tianhua to answer him. Tianhua, for example, you can borrow from various sections. I believe that with your face, borrowing 3 million gold coins is definitely not a problem, right? Hearing this, Tianhua hurriedly shook his head. How can I do that? How can I borrow so many gold coins from others? If I can't pay it back, wouldn't my reputation be ruined? Yuan Weiqing suddenly said loudly, Tianhua, don't talk nonsense. How can you not pay back 3 million gold coins? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused and sneered before continuing, Tianhua, don't forget, it's not just 3 million gold coins. There's also my 2 million gold coins. Do you want to borrow them too? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, Tianhua's expression changed drastically. He stared at Shui Zhijing and asked loudly, Hall Master Shui, do you want me to borrow 5 million gold coins? Hearing this, Shui Zhijing sighed. Tianhua, if you don't have 5 million gold coins, then you can only borrow it. After hearing Shui Zhijing's answer, Tianhua gritted his teeth for a moment before suddenly laughing out loud. After his laughter subsided, he shouted sternly, I understand now. You don't want to negotiate with me sincerely. You're just making things difficult for me. At this point, Tianhua paused and turned to look at Shui Zhijing before continuing, Hall Master Shui, am I right? Hearing this, Shui Zhijing shook his head. Tianhua, we're not making things difficult for you. It's just that you've caused too much damage to us. With so much damage, if you don't compensate us, it won't be right. Tianhua, I think you should think of a way to borrow these gold coins. Zhang Chunren also shouted from the side, Tianhua, I believe that you're sincere. Borrowing 5 million gold coins is definitely not a problem. Tianhua, let's see if you're sincere now. Hearing the two's words, Tianhua was so angry that the veins on his forehead popped and his teeth chattered. After a while, he finally calmed himself down and asked loudly, Zhang Chunren, your son's matter clearly has nothing to do with us, yet you want so much gold coins. What's your motive? This is simply unreasonable. Hearing Tianhua's question, Zhang Chunren laughed coldly and shook his head. Tianhua, what motive? At this point, Zhang Chunren paused for a moment, but immediately after, without waiting for Tianhua to reply, he snorted and continued. Tianhua, shouldn't you be asking yourself this question? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.